Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 4th, 2023 Hybrid Select Board meeting. Happy New Year to everyone. This is our first meeting of the new year, and so we will go ahead and call the meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. And let's go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Joe, you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. So tonight we are being recorded and broadcast by WACA-TV. And we are in hybrid mode, which means that people can participate via Zoom or here in person in Town Hall. I would ask that if anyone does want to participate remotely tonight, that they use the raise hand function within Zoom. So with that, let's open it up to citizens' participation. So I see Joel. Joel Arbeitman, if you would like to go ahead and unmute yourself, you can go ahead and speak.
Are you able to hear me?
We can definitely hear you. Yep. Hi,
That
Joel.
sounds great. Well, first off, Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you. And oh boy, I'm having a little bit of an issue here. I need to somehow minimize my screen. Zoom has taken the whole screen and I can't get to my document. Oh, here it is. Let me see if I got it. Okay, there we go. I also want to thank the board for continuing to hold these select board meetings in a hybrid mode because I don't know, I'm seeing a whole lot of COVID around from people I know, so I'm glad I can just kind of phone it in. I'm just going to read this first part of a memo I wrote, and I'm also going to forward this to the select board and the town manager. It's entitled New Massachusetts Bicycle Safety Law effective January 1st, 2023. On Monday, January 1st, Governor Baker signed into law Senate Bill S 3162 called An Act to Reduce Traffic Fatalities that, among other changes, greatly improves the safety of bicycle riders and other roadway users by one, requiring drivers to maintain at least a 4-foot buffer between their cars and vulnerable users, such as bike riders, and two, allowing drivers to cross the center line if necessary in order to provide the 4-foot safety buffer. The Ashland Bike Club would like to offer its deepest appreciation to Governor Baker, Senator Spilka, and Representative Lewis for enacting this important legislation. How can the Ashland Select Board and the town manager help implement the new law? Laws cannot be effective unless they are supported by ongoing public education and community outreach. Both MassDOT and municipalities need to educate drivers about their responsibilities under the new law. Ashland can play a key role by educating its residents. The goal of the law is to save lives, and it is essential for Ashland to do all it can to support the effort. Ideas could include printing brochures and distributing them in places such as the community center, town hall, the schools, local businesses, state inspection stations, excise tax bills, and in newsletters from the town manager. It would also be helpful to print and distribute the 4 feet It's the Law poster. I have a sample of the picture for the poster that you'll see when I mail the document to you. That's all I had for tonight. I just want to emphasize the importance of trying to promote education around this new law, to make people, not just bicycle riders, but all of those on the roads, including emergency workers, construction workers, and others, and pedestrians, of course, as safe as they possibly can be. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Joel. That's really good to know. I wasn't aware of that. So I'm sure that's really good information that we can turn around and communicate to our residents too. So thank you for that. Is anyone else here for citizens participation? Okay, Seeing none. We're going to go ahead and move into the first scheduled appearance this evening. We have Samantha Riley, who is our Sustainability Program Manager and has been with the town for 5 months now, and we are thrilled that you are here with us tonight. Michael, was there anything else that you wanted to say before we kind of turn it over to Samantha?
No, just that, Samantha, as you mentioned, has been with us for 5 months, and that's given her a time to get in here and get acclimated, not only to our employees here, but also with the Sustainability Committee. And she's a part of their meetings, which are usually twice a month now, right? Yes. So she serves a valuable role in liaising between employees and the Sustainability Committee. And so she's here to give you an update, and I'll turn it over to you.
Wonderful. You guys hear me? Wonderful.
Yes.
All right. I have a little presentation. Oh, all right. So I'm going to discuss some of the projects that have both been in the works since prior to me joining Ashland and have continued since, and then some of the projects that I've started to work on, and then some of my goals for this upcoming year. So to start, we're looking at our green communities chart. Ashland's been a green community since 2011. Since COVID, we've been on a sort of upward trend with our energy usage. The goal for green communities is to be at a 20% reduction of our 2011 numbers.
Sorry, I'm just going to tilt this up for the folks on Zoom. It's quite cutting you off a little bit. Thanks.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Yeah. What a great angle.
It's the upshot.
It's taller than me, so I set it up.
So our goal is to be 20% reduction of our 2011 numbers, which is the first column in this chart. As you can tell by our 2022 numbers, we have had an increase. The majority of this is to buildings, vehicles, and water and sewer. The majority of this is due to COVID. We've had extra things running in buildings to make sure that germs aren't spreading, and we've had more people working out of their cars and single passengers in vehicles instead of double, which is why that's been up. We're hoping that will be a reduction in that. There's another grant opportunity coming in the spring. So hopefully we will see another downward turn, sort of back to normalized. Our 2019 numbers were actually really, really good. Moving on. We have our municipal aggregation, which these numbers came in, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, and these are the savings that our residents and businesses have been receiving from our aggregation program. Currently, we use natural wind. It is based in the Midwest, but we are waiting on the Department of Energy to just sign off, and then we will have local wind source energy, which will be very exciting. Hopefully that will come any day now. Let me know. We're likely to get it before Charlie Baker leaves office, so hopefully soon. Okay, hopefully soon in our new governors. So our rate, just for a reminder, is 0.1049 cents a kilowatt hour, and for December, Eversource reported their rates as being 0.20791. So it's big savings.
Like half.
Is that me?
No, I think that's Paul trying to
All right.
set some stuff up. Can we keep going, Paul?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Moving forward, we have our Metro West Climate Equity Project, which we wrapped up our sort of first and second phase of it, and we're applying to move into a third phase. The goal of this was to reach out to residents specifically in environmental justice areas, us, Natick, and Framingham, and just to see how they've been affected by climate change, what they know about the effects of climate change, and what they're seeing on a day-to-day basis. I included...
It's got a text saying
They
Sue,
can't hear her.
Sue can't hear.
Oh,
I was going to pick something close.
sorry, I'm tall, the mic's short. I included the map of Ashland because we are now, to the 2020 census, fully an environmental justice community, which for those who don't know what that means, there's 3 criteria to hit one. We reached 2. The yellow area is for residents of a certain population of minority, and that green strip is a population that has a certain population of minorities and lower income residents. The third phase that we are looking to shift into will be to look at resources to reach out to residents so people know what resources are available to them through the town, through the state, if they're having issues due to climate change, what we can talk about. There was 4 main takeaways from this survey: transportation, emergency planning, clean and effective energy, and blue spaces. In our later conversations for Ashland, we talked about transportation and blue spaces. Blue spaces meaning water, so we were talking a lot about the state park. There's a lot of discussion about, we love the state park, but there's no easy transportation to the state park or easy walkways to get there. So that was a big discussion point. All right. Finally, for sort of older projects, our Black Earth compost, we hit our goal with Holliston of 500 households. This has reduced the rate from $89.99 for 6 months to $69.99. And for some quick math, if you use more than 3 large trash bags a week, you could have savings if you sign up for Black Earth compost. It's my one sales pitch. In the fall, we had a pumpkin drop-off with Black Earth, which allowed residents to drop off their pumpkins. Next year, I'd like to do a tweak of that, but we had a lot of people come by to compost their pumpkins instead of throw them in the trash, which was amazing. All right, for newer projects, I'm looking to do an expansion of our charging stations. Right now, Eversource has funding which can cover all of or the majority of the cost of the charging stations. I've heard a rumor that the most that if they do cost something, it's $1,000 per station. So I've been filling out an application to Eversource, which no commitment whatsoever, so they could say, it's $2,000 a charging station. I'd go, never mind, I don't want it. But I'm looking to sort of bulk buy to prepare for the future when hopefully we have a fleet of electric vehicles and residents are driving their electric vehicles. So we're looking to get them for Town Hall, the high school, the public safety building, the Front Street parking lot across from the library, DPW, the community center, and then the Cedar Street location. And those will vary from 1 charging station to 10 charging stations. Right now, you're thinking 10 charging stations in the Town Hall parking lot. That's a lot. The goal will not to be make them exclusive for EV charging. We do priority, but make sure that if you don't have an EV, you can still use it if the parking lot's full.
I have a question about charging stations.
Yes.
Because I understand they're not uniform in that sense. So can you explain that a little bit? Am I correct? Teslas are different than Fords, are different than another
Yes.
version?
So for the most part, the charging station that we have, unless it's a Tesla station, it's sort of one size fits all. It does everything. Tesla stations, I know that they were tweaking it, so I don't know what percentage covers it, but I know that Tesla stations for now just charge Teslas. Through regular charging stations, there are different models. There's 3 different phases. There's the first one, which is it can take anywhere from 2 hours to, my dad has an electric Jeep and it takes him 17 hours to charge it. The phase 2, which is what we have, on average takes about 2 hours for every vehicle. And then there's a third phase, which according to an engineer, we can get at the high school, which can charge cars in 30 minutes. So.
Great, thank you.
Just to follow up on that, when you look at, are we reaching a point where we're starting to charge for the use of these stations? Or are they all gonna be free, and what's the cost of the electricity we're providing?
That has been a big discussion between the Sustainability Committee, that they believe that we should be charging for the station use. If that is, it should be all stations. You have to put a cost on. We can't just say free at Town Hall, or we can. That's sort of your decision.
I think we should, the trend should be normalizing these things, which actually means that people start paying for them and we put in more of them.
I fully agree. You don't get free gas.
Right.
You don't deserve a free charge.
Yeah, so.
I agree with you, Rob. And that was going to be my question to Samantha, but
Yeah.
thank you for asking it. But
Yeah, someone has to be paying that bill.
Yes.
Has there been any thought about adding to additional locations, whether it's like at Kids Spot or, at Stone Park or at the other schools other than just the high school?
We can definitely look into that. I know
Okay.
the middle school has one, so maybe extending upon that. I was sort of waiting to see from Eversource what their numbers are. I've been told that they're saying, oh, you want 12? We'll give you 50. Like, they want to get rid of their charging stations, so if they have, you're going to pay nothing for them and you'll get a lot. Every municipal lot will get a charging station.
Yeah.
Samantha, has there been any discussion, or is there any advantage to do bulk? You're saying do bulk buying. Would it be any advantage to, say, reach out to Holliston or Southborough or other communities?
Regional.
So it's a more regional approach rather than just each town? I don't know where whatever source would think of that, or if there's a benefit to say, okay, these 3 communities together want to do 100 versus just us doing however many we're looking at doing.
Yeah, I have not thought about that. I can
Okay.
reach out to Eversource and see if we're doing 100 across 4 towns, do we get more savings?
Right.
That's a great thought.
Okay.
I'll look into it. Because I know that other towns that I've been speaking to have been looking to do the same thing.
Right.
So if there is a bulk buy option, it makes sense.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions on chargers before I move on?
Nope.
All right, SoulSmart. So SoulSmart is a national designation which streamlines it to make it easier for residents, for businesses, for the town to install solar. They have national rankings systems, and they have a 3-tier system, bronze, silver, gold, like the Olympics. It's based off of a point system with requirements. Based off us doing nothing, we hit bronze based off what we have. My goal is to get silver. I'm very competitive. Gold. I want gold. We're on track. We're on track to get silver. For silver, we need to clarify that our zoning, you can put accessory solar in any location. Right now, our zoning only mentions large-scale solar. It doesn't mention rooftop. It doesn't mention any form of accessory. So to get gold, we will need to specify that in our zoning, which is a goal. And then our building commissioner is currently taking a long training session, which is necessary for the silver. Any other questions?
So I know this was kind of before your time, but I think it was probably a year or so ago, we had that Clean Heat Solar Challenge. And I was kind of curious because I don't think we ever heard sort of like what the final, like how successful it was, if we think that something like that is helpful, like in the future. So I don't know if you have any feedback on that.
I've heard that it's moderately successful.
Okay.
I did bring that up because the Inflation Reduction Act, which I think everything starts January 1st, has lots of rebates for solar and geothermal, and I talked to the Sustainability Committee about sort of doing another version of it, and their consensus was those who participated or those who participated, so there might be some more traction, but maybe just to push on the rebates, and I think we're getting our newsletter back in, which I'll come back at later. It's one of my goals, but sort of just getting information out there of these are the rebates, these are great. If we have SoulSmart, it's going to make it a little bit easier for you to have solar, so not a full challenge, but definitely encouraging.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, trainings. So I'm going to start a staff training sort of program, maybe I'll call it a master class. That sounds
Masterclass.
That sounds good. That sounds great.
and the goal of these is to just sort of get the employees to start rethinking about our sustainability. I know that it's easy for tractor broke down, let's just get a new one, but to think maybe there's an electric version of this. Maybe there's something that we could do that's more sustainable. So I think trying to change the department heads' thinking process when it comes to sustainability and showing that there are benefits to it and it's the future. So that's my goal with these training sessions, is to educate them on what's going on in the world of sustainability and how it can impact everyone in the work that we do. That's my goal there. All right, and then some of my 2023 goals. I've first is Soul Smart Gold. As I said, I'm very competitive. I'd love to obtain more EVs for our fleet and maybe strive away from the Leafs, maybe get an electric truck, do something different, sort of just pushing that EVs are the cars of the future. I think it's a great way to demonstrate that Ashland is pro-electric vehicle. And if we have all these charging stations, we can't have them empty, so we might as well fill them up with EVs. I've been working at the Warren School with Principal Regan about doing more recycling in the schools, because currently there's no recycling at the lunch service, and it's up to the teachers. And walking around the school, most of the recycling bins were empty. So we're going to start with trying to teach the little ones how to recycle, and then as they grow, they already have these skills. I think it'll be easier to get them to do it than maybe some middle schoolers. I have a goal of 10 charging stations. I'd love to do more, but I'm being modest about it. And then finally, we're going to start back up the sustainability newsletter, which will hopefully go out monthly or quarterly, just to inform people with what's going on, what the town's doing, what the state's doing, what the federal government's doing. There's so much money out there that people don't know about, and so many resources. And I would just love to inform more people about it. That's what I got for you all.
That's great.
Go ahead, Steve.
You prefer Samantha or Sam?
Sam, either one.
Sam? Okay. Sam, can you, your first time before the board, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what your sustainability background is?
So, Sam, I grew up in Hopkinton, right next door, so very familiar with the area. In college, I sort of got freaked out by all the plastic, especially during COVID, and that's sort of what pushed me towards doing sustainability as an advocacy and more of a job. I have a background working for a solar developer, so I have a background in solar, and I have a passion for trying to reduce plastic, and I think educating people, because I think there's so much out there that people just don't know about, and once you know about it, it horrifies you, but I just want to educate people on it.
Very, very good, thanks. Thank you.
Joe, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sam, great presentation, and welcome to town. Sorry that you had to come from Hopkinton, but we'll let that slide by. Over the holidays, there was a commercial for a new piece of equipment that you can buy in your home, and I think it was called Tomly, and you take your food trash and you put it in this machine with plastic, and it grinds it all up, and you can reuse it for soil.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw that commercial or not, but it's
Yeah, it's a Lomi.
Lomi. That's
Yes.
it, Lomi.
Mm-hmm.
Lomi. Has it been out for a while?
Probably about a year or two, it was out there for funding.
This is the first commercial that I saw of it, and that would probably be something interesting to look into as well. But where you talked about training and education, have you made it a point to try to get in front of the school committee with this presentation, especially if you're trying to get the schools to recycle? I think that would be a good way of making your point valid to them.
Yeah.
You try to get that step, move it up a little bit faster for you.
I have not yet, but I will.
No,
That'll be
no,
a goal for 2023.
There you go, an additional goal.
I'll add it to the
There you go.
list.
Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, welcome to town, Sam. So one of the things I just wanted to just kind of make sure you're aware of, that we've had a long-term struggle with Eversource and the gas pipeline, and we basically brought it to a halt because we wanted to stop the expansion of the use of gas. And as part of that, we're also on the other side trying to, this goes to your point about the heat project. So ground source heat pumps, alternatives to gas, electrification, residential electrification, I think are really important aspects that I at least would emphasize in terms of your work. And the other thing with I don't see in your goals implementing the net zero plan. Are you familiar with our net zero plan? And has been much discussion with the sustainability committee about that?
Yes.
That's probably our major sustainability project in this town.
That is. In fact, that's an obvious one that I
Yes.
missed. I think everything that I do sort of interprets into
Yeah.
that bigger goal.
Right. And then part of what it does is provide a structure.
Yes.
So when you're making these decisions about your goals, I think you want to be looking at that and talking to sustainability about what's the next step. Because we're all kind of, waiting, or not waiting, but trying to push forward to achieve our net zero goals. So I think it'd be great if you can integrate that, specifically into your goals and work with them on what they're doing next, because I think they're a little bit, they could use the assistance, I think, in getting this, keeping it moving.
Yeah, I think, Rob, to that point, it's discussed pretty much at every meeting, right?
Yes.
Net zero, and I think what's coming out of those discussions, the possibility of a couple warrant articles at the next town meeting that Sam would be involved with. And then also, it's not, it's not really tangible or anything like that, but the trainings that Samantha referenced are really important components of that net zero plan too. So, starting to integrate that type of thinking into the culture of the organization. Obviously, it needs to get out into the community. I mean, selling Samantha on sustainability is not going to be a hard thing to do. I mean, this is her passion. This is what she does. But for the rest of us who have other primary focuses in terms of our job duties, it might not be the first thing that comes to mind when we're thinking about implementing those job duties. So Samantha's goal is to really, like she said, have people start thinking about this when they're starting to think about their own goals and their own projects and things that they're moving forward with.
That's good, but I think she needs to, be staffed to the sustainability committee so they can.
She's there at every
Good. Okay.
meeting.
It's not every
Great.
meeting.
So
Good. Thank you.
Yolanda,
Yeah,
go
just welcome. It was a very good presentation. I would echo what Joe said, try to get in front of our school committee and give them this presentation, as well as let them know that you're already working with one of the principals. I do have one, and I know this is going to be a little controversial. There is discussion with electronic vehicles that, yes, they're very good, they're using electrical, but the lithium batteries that they're using, there's still issues as to what we do with those. So I think as you're working on the EV project, be aware of that as well, because there are people in town who are not as supportive of electronic vehicles because of where lithium is being sourced from, and then what are we doing with the batteries long term. So just be aware that there's a small group, but there are people out there questioning that.
It is. They've done studies that show that the lifetime of an EV versus regular gas-powered car is a lot less emissions. But the lithium is an issue. I think they found a battery that's saltwater powered that will come with its own issues, because I need to where you're getting the salt water from. But yes, it's hopefully evolving, and we will have better lithium batteries and more ethically sourced lithium in the future.
And that was it.
Sam, my question is, so we are a Black Earth family. We love to compost, and I was very excited in November when we re-upped our 6-month subscription that the price had dropped. So I was thrilled. So I would suggest trying to get that information out there to people, because to your point about if you use 3 trash bags a week, and it reduces the amount of trash bags, for us, we are talking about trash as an issue, and the cost of rubbish and recycling in general, is an issue for us. So I think if you can help re-engage everyone in the whole compost, because it's been a while since we've really talked about the composting program, and it's a great program. I mean, we put out 1 trash bag every 2 weeks. I mean, we compost so much. It's such a fantastic program. So I would definitely encourage you to try to get that information out there, that the cost has dropped, because I think people will see it as less trash bags is a good thing. And I would also suggest, I know you were talking about your newsletter, I would also suggest putting information in the Town Pages newspaper. The cycle of getting information into it is kind of you have to put stuff out there.
Way in advance.
Yeah, way in advance. But that will give you a way to reach people who may or may not be subscribing to like some of the email newsletters. So it just may be another way to reach folks. But I think that you have some great goals. You have a lot going on, which is great. So we are excited that you are here, and we look forward to hearing more from you and from the Sustainability Committee. As Michael said, we'll probably be talking to the Sustainability Committee at some point soon, especially if they're planning to come back to town meeting with some warrant articles.
I think, do I remember, are they involved with the bag? Were you getting a recommendation from them, Michael? I'm sorry, it's kind of a related thing that reminded me. Were we waiting to hear from them about the trash?
I know they had a discussion about it at the last meeting, right, Sam?
Okay.
And their preference really was to push more of the cost onto the bags.
Yes,
right,
they
from a
wanted more
consumption
cost on the
standpoint.
bag. And then they would love it. Composting was for everyone.
Are they making a formal recommendation? I'm sorry.
I think we're gonna,
Okay.
next meeting, I think
Great,
we're gonna have
thank
trash on our agenda. I mean, I would personally, like, my preference would be if people compost, it gives them some sort of credit on trash, but that's, we're trying to make up a deficit, so, that's probably not
Well, the credit is you're not using as many trash bags,
That's
because we're
really
also
true.
composting. We also use the Black Earth compost.
Yeah.
And especially when you find out that you can put all your poultry bones and meat bones, and I remember when we first started doing it, they're no longer in your trash.
Yeah.
They're now in your compost, and you can't compost them personally in your backyard because that attracts critters. So having the compost program has been very helpful.
They also discussed, and this is informal, but switching to a bi-weekly system that in other towns has shown to reduce waste.
A bi-weekly
Pickup.
compost?
Trash
Trash
pickup.
pickup.
Oh,
Okay.
so instead of getting picked up every week,
It's
it
every
would be
other week.
picked up every other week.
Oh, that's an interesting,
I don't think that would fly.
but
Yeah,
it's an
no, just
interesting
informal
thought.
suggestion that
What's the
Yeah.
pick up trash every other week? Isn't that what's happening now?
Now.
Touche, touche.
A little close to home.
That was good.
That was good, okay.
Good.
So does anyone have anything else for Sam? We're good? All right, well, thank you very much. It was
Thank
great
you
to
for
meet
having
you,
me,
and thank you for
Samantha.
coming
Yeah,
to
thank you.
talk to us tonight. It was great, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Bye.
Look forward to seeing you again.
Do you want me to close out the
Nope,
laptop?
just go right ahead.
Wonderful.
We're good.
Thank you.
So next on our agenda is an update from Paul Gustafson on 433 Chestnut Street. I see Paul
Mine.
is on Zoom. There's Paul. Thank you. Hi, Paul. How are you? You're muted. Hold on one second, Paul. There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year to you too. So before we kind of get into it, just to give everyone sort of a real high level overview of what this is. So 433 Chestnut House is known as the Hall House. It has historical significance as to Henry Warren had worked in the basement of the Hall House, and this had been a town-owned property that was sold to Mr. Gustafson, basically in exchange for a preservation restriction that kind of detailed what the renovations could kind of include and what we could expect. So we had, Paul, I think that the last time you were with us was in October. I think it was October 12th. And, there's been a lot of changes to the property since the last time you were here. We thought it would be good to kind of have you give an update as to what's happening on your end. I think there's a couple of loose ends that we probably need to tie up, but I think personally, hopefully, we'll be in a good place by the end of tonight, and, maybe this might be the last time you have to come and chat with us unless something else goes crazily differently. But it would be great to be able to see the changes and everything that you have done to the Hall House. I've driven by. To me, it looks awesome. But do you want to? I know you've had some slides. Do you want to go ahead and You can go ahead and share your screen or however you want to. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, fantastic. I appreciate the intro and being a local real estate agent and builder, I don't use Zoom a whole lot. So I'm going to figure out how to share my screen. So hang on just one moment. Figure out how to do that.
It should be at the bottom of your screen.
Under participants? Oh, share screen.
Yep.
That makes sense. That's very
And you should be
intuitive.
able to choose the window with the presentation and
Yep.
yep.
Okay, so I'm going to share screen and hang on. Okay, here we go. All right, so yep, that's it. Share that. Okay, can everyone see it?
It's
Not yet.
coming up. There it is.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so I'm going to put everyone down below here. All right, so this is what I have here prepared is, a few slides with some photographs showing what's been completed and then, some status and then, what the next few months will look like. So, this intro slide shows a nice sort of before and after, not from the same angle, unfortunately. But the house is now completed on the outside. Oh, I can get down. Oh, wait, hang on, I'm gonna do this. Hang on. All right, now I got it. Yeah. Okay, so the exterior, like I said, is completed. We're weather tight basically at this point. The roof has been installed. All the cedar siding has been in place. We didn't use hardy plank, we didn't use vinyl, we used cedar clapboards, and everything has been painted white, as you can see here in the pictures. The farmer's porch is completed, except for some minor trim and also the ceiling on the inside that we left exposed for right now. And there's a back porch deck area right here. Can you guys see my cursor as well?
Yes, we can see that.
Perfect. All right, and then on the outside, we also added some new stone walkways. There was a small stone wall, retaining wall here. That was extended sort of on an arch up towards the street to create a retaining wall so that there's more of a front yard. And then the same was done here on the in the front yard. This pretty much follows what was there before. So now we have a walkway, more of a front yard, 2 entrances into the home, farmer's porch, and then also the front door. And so that was completed as well. I reused some additional pictures here. I'll just move forward here a little bit. So the front entranceway was replicated, restored and reused the original corbels. This shows them all stripped down, 150 years worth of paint was removed. The front door surround was recreated, the roof was recreated. The upper piece of granite here was original to the home, and you can see it here in this picture as well. And on the side of the steps, I found these basic large cobblestones that were in the front of the house, probably used to divert rain away from the front of the house, I guess. They were pretty much covered with dirt, didn't even know they were there. So reused those on the front steps in addition to that large granite slab that you see there. So that was a pretty cool look that was attained. This door we painted black to match what was there before. So that's that. So that's pretty much the status of the exterior. Is it's completed, it's painted, it's roofed, the windows are in, garage doors are on. Some rough grading and retaining walls, walkways were done. There's still, obviously in the spring, more landscaping to be completed, grass, everything's gonna be loamed, seeded, raked out, new bushes, new trees and stuff planted in the front of the house, and the sides of the house, and probably in the rear of the house as well. So that's the status as far as the exterior construction is concerned, and now we're working on the interior. I wanted to show quickly an update. So a lot of lumber was salvaged, so I want to update on that. This shows the lumber being, it was, pretty, after 150 years exposed to, insulation and rodents and all that. So everything was cleaned, lightly power washed and cleaned. This shows some examples of some of the lumber that was salvaged. And that is now all stored inside the garage. And as we talked about back in October, will be reused on the interior of the house in a manner that we had previously discussed. So some nice looking planks. I'm really pleased with some of the red tones that it took on. I mean, these are wet right now, but when they dry out, you still see quite a bit of the wood tone, and they're going to be pretty on the inside of the house. Go to use them. So, feel free, any questions, interject if you wish.
Paul, the
use
of the, great job so far. I have a question regarding the planks that you plan on using. Would that be
Okay,
part of a...
I'm sorry, hang on one second. I'm going to try to increase my volume because I'm having a hard time hearing. Okay, try that again, please.
Okay, great presentation so far. The planks that you're going to restore and reuse on the interior, will those be used for like kitchen flooring or hallway flooring?
Okay, all I think I heard was something about what type of wood or what type of material I'll be using on the floors.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll use my outside cop voice. The planking. I feel like I'm in a stage studio. I guess I am. The planking that you were referring to with the red tinge, those are great looking boards. Are you planning on using those for flooring in the kitchen or hallway area?
I really wish I could. They're short. I have a couple of really long lengths, but most of them are short lengths.
Oh, okay.
They're pretty severely cupped. So I think they're more suitable. So that's suitable for flooring, although I wish I could. I am planning on using some wide, wood flooring, but it won't come from the house. But instead, what I'm going to do, based on what some of the things we talked about back in October, is use those planks in select areas of the house on the interior walls to sort of provide some accent, some,
Gotcha.
help, provide some originality to the home on the interior. So that's the intent based on what we talked about in October. So it just wasn't enough, nor if I even had enough that they could be used on the floor.
Thank you.
So, any questions up till now? Any other questions?
No,
Okay.
Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, great. So I want to provide an update on the farmer's porch. So after the October meeting, there was some back and forth about dismantling the porch. That desire was agreed upon after that meeting, and as long as I could reuse, the request was to reuse as much of the lumber, of the existing lumber, as possible. So this is showing the underside of the porch prior to disassembling it. There's not much holding it up. This picture here to the right shows the planking removed. This is the planking you see right here that's on the floor on the inside of the house. Pretty rough shape. All this, it's a lot of nails in it. It's they had shingles on it over the years. Obviously, water penetrated it. So a lot of these are pretty spongy and rotted out. However, these 7 or so, these are placed every 36 inches on center. So about 7 of them, these rafters that form the slopey part of the roof. So what I originally had proposed doing, and I'll still do it, but I have some other ideas now, to basically put them back up inside the porch, sistered up next to the newer lumber that was used to rebuild the roof. We put the new beam, the new rafters are 16 on center, so basically be every other joist or every other rafter will have an old one placed next to it. But what I was wondering discuss with you folks is I think it might be better. These are pretty cool. They're you know, pretty decent shape. They have some nice character to them. I thought instead of putting them on an angle, only to have put a ceiling in the porch and then therefore hide them, although now they're providing some structural support to the porch. But instead of doing that, make them visible by placing them on a horizontal. So basically they'd go from the new structural beam across to the house, and then I would put a ceiling above them, some sort of bead board or whatever that's typical of that era and new construction these days too, and have those rafters now basically ceiling joists that are below the ceiling and therefore visible to anyone walking up the porch to the door of the house.
That's cool.
So you'd have these. They wouldn't be exposed to weather. I guess they would be a little bit, but up underneath the roof, so they wouldn't be exposed to weather that much. And I think it'd be kind of a nice look. So it's one of the things I wanted to bring up tonight was the idea of doing that so these things can be exposed. So the porch was everything was set aside, and now I can do one of those two things with the leftover wood. I do still have these planks. I'll try to use them inside the house. I was going to put them back on top of the new rafters, but they're just too far gone to do that with. But that's open for discussion too, if you guys have thoughts about that. So Sabrina, I don't know whether you want to pause here to discuss that, or I can continue on, or we can circle back to that.
So I like that idea, Paul, of putting them horizontal so that you can see them when you're on the farmer's porch. I think that's a good use of that old wood, and it will give the front porch a little more character. So yeah, I like that idea. And yeah, understandable, the planking that was on the roof that, shingles didn't protect. If there's anything you can do with that, because even though it looks beat up, it looks like there might be sections that are still usable in some way.
Of the planking. Yeah.
Of the planking, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to try to reuse, as much as I can, where I can.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
I may even use some of this in, this it's kind of hard to see here, but this farmer's porch now comes into like a little vestibule, basically a mud room. I maybe use some of that on the ceiling of that area.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you walk in to have that on your ceiling. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to put some on the walls in the mudroom, sort of like wainscoting that goes halfway up.
Yep.
It's just a durable surface for that kind of a space, and make a bench and maybe places to hang coats and things using some of that old lumber. So that old porch walking into the mudroom, which will now look very old with some of the reuse of the lumber, will be a nice way of entering the house.
Very nice.
Cool. All right, so if everything's good there, I'll continue on to the next slide. So basically it summarizes what's been done up until now. It's been a great deal of work, building a new addition, get everything framed up, reframing, the basement work, exterior, siding, roofing, all that. So it's been a long few months. And now we're on to the interior. Perfect time of year to do that. So the plumbing, heating and air conditioning, and the electric is underway. And on the inside of the house, sewer is connected, electric is being connected, gas will be connected this spring. All that will be underground, so there'll be no lines going to the house, which I think provides a nicer look from the street, not having the power lines overhead. And then, of course, once all that's completed with mechanical roughs, then we move to insulation, sheetrock, and then the real fun stuff, which is going to be the interior finish. And right now, I'm looking at, starting the insulation late January and having the house finished, sometime in April. That will coincide with the exterior, landscaping and finalization of all that. So. End of April, first part of May, I'm hoping the project will be done. And of course, you guys are all welcome to come visit and check it all out. I'm still planning on having some sort of an open house for the public and town, town people to come review it and see what's been done to it.
All right. Thank you, Paul. That was a great update. The pictures are pretty, the changes are significant, and it's good. Yep, go ahead.
So, Paul, just the one thing is, when you're doing the utilities, we're, hope you will investigate ground source heat pumps. I know you need to put in a whole new furnace, I would think, and this would be the time to transition away from gas and into electricity. So, especially as a, so I hope you're looking at that very closely, and if it's practical, there's a ton of rebates. The Inflation Reduction Act has all sorts of credits and refunds and incentives for that. So, seeing as how I assume you're starting from ground zero here, this might be a great opportunity to really to look at that. And we're doing the same thing with our town buildings. So, I hope you can do that as well.
Noted. And I did look a little bit at heat pumps. I have heat pumps myself in my home and solar panels. However, on this house, I did choose to go with gas. So I've got gas, very high efficient, and 97% efficient gas furnaces, along with the AC.
Any particular reason you didn't find it useful, or
I think we're gonna have an offline conversation about it. I mean, I think it's great with solar. It's very affordable. My electric bill, I heat my whole house with solar, with heat pumps. My electric bill's $100, $150 a month with the solar panels. But I have a lot of solar panels.
No, I wasn't talking about solar. I was talking about your choice.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that for my own, for my current home, I have it, but it makes sense with solar panels. Anyways, I'd love to have a discussion. I'm always, looking to learn and get everyone's, different people's perspective on things like that. But on this particular project, I decided to go with gas. I wish we had talked maybe a few months ago.
Oh, okay.
Pulled the trigger on that. Probably about six weeks ago.
So does anybody else have any comments, questions? So Paul, just so I think that I think, and I know Yolanda had voiced that she liked the farmer's porch idea. I like that as well. Is there any comments, or is there support in general from the board to be able to?
Yeah, that seemed reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seemed like.
So Paul, I think you can definitely go ahead and move forward with that. You have our support on that.
Great. Thank you.
And then I think there were just a few other things that we had kind of tabled way back when, and we had talked about a kiosk, putting a kiosk at the location, similar to what is at Warren Woods. Have you had thoughts of about the kiosk and where that might be able to go?
Yeah. My initial thoughts about that was, I'm totally agreeable to doing it. It wasn't part of any of the original RFP or original plans for the house, but we talked about it. I think the board and the historic commission feel strongly about it. I think it's a great idea as well, and I'm happy to do it. I saw the one over, I've seen it previously, went back and looked at it over at Warren Woods. Would like some input from the historical commission, perhaps, about or the historical society about what to put on it in terms of the design. And so that's all good. The only concern is, and I'm sure it's workable, I have some ideas, and obviously the house is going to be, it's a private home. People are going to be living there. Myself, possibly in years to come, I'm probably going to hang on to this house. But I may have a tenant living there or a family member living there. So, to have a kiosk on the property that people have to walk to, I think is, there's some privacy issues there. There's some liability issues there. So as a result of those concerns, I think the workaround and the best approach would be to place the kiosk somewhere on the boundary of the property. And that would be probably one of obviously there's four corners to the property, to be one of, one of the corners. I prefer maybe the far right-hand corner, down near the street, since it's a public way and the town owns, up to whatever it is, 5-8 feet in from the road, that maybe we could put it somewhere on the line, the border between those, where those two, those two properties meet. The other thought is, a lot of people walk the Warren Center. It is private property or owned by UMass, Framingham State. So they may need some input, but perhaps it could be, I think the best place to put it, if they agree to it, is on the shared property line between me and them, so that people are walking that area, they can see the kiosk, and it can be on my property, but it'll be right on the line, so that if they're walking down the driveway to the red barn, or even on the field, closest to my house, they can see the kiosk and observe it. And it's in I think a more quieter, more pedestrian type situation than it would be if you had it on the street. So sort of up near the street or towards the rear left corner of the house, where the two lots between Warren Center and the Red Barn and my house meet up. What I'm thinking.
Yeah, has
Could
anybody
we get
ever
a-
walked back
Could
there?
we get a plot plan and sort of figure out where it makes sense and?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's even better than a plot plan, I thought, I was going to put one up, but it's just, it's lines on a paper, is, it doesn't really give you a whole lot of context, is I'll try to get some photographs or even a drone, photo, and sort of illustrate where this would be. Maybe mock up something, place it there, and take some pictures, and I can send those into the board to review.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. Great, thanks, Paul.
Sure. I mean, any initial thoughts? I mean, I know it's hard to envision it, but in terms of on the street or being near the field, how that might happen with Warren Center, does anyone have any ideas or any feedback on that without
Joe,
seeing any pictures?
Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, Paul, I'd have to agree with the fact that if you were to put it up by the street area, there are actually no sidewalks there.
I know.
And so I don't know what type of traffic or pedestrian traffic you're going to get.
Yeah.
Having it out by the field area there actually makes some sense to me, because you do get a lot of people, walking that area, heading back towards the reservoir. And if you to put it, right at the boundary line, the borderline there between Framingham State's property and your property, to me, that makes the most common sense. That's me anyway.
Yeah, it does. And, but it's going to have to be some dialogue, discussion with, the powers to be at Warren Center. I know that
In terms of how I
director
look at
over
it, if
there,
there's a trail near there, Paul, I mean, if people are going to be, there are trails there.
yeah,
If it's part of the trail, then I think that makes sense. If it isn't, then
I don't think there's a trail
well, I
that
mean-
close to the house.
That's what I
Most
mean,
of the
yeah.
trails are at
That'd
the
be-
back of the property.
that'd be
of
my
the-
concern with
The
that.
field.
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe we should
Yeah,
have
so
a
maybe some
sidewalk out
pictures.
there.
Yeah, let me do a mock-up, get some pictures, aerial, and then maybe a video kind of approaching it from the field, from the street, walking down the Warren Center's, the new driveway that goes to the barn. And, I think we'll all have a better sense of it at that point. However, I'm hoping we can do that. If it's on my property, then it's on my property. I don't think Warren Center really has a say in it. And,
No.
if it's on mine and not on theirs, however, obviously people will be on their property viewing it because it's been right on the line, but there's people out there all the time anyways. So I can't imagine it being too much of an issue or a concern of theirs to do it that way.
Okay, all right, that sounds good.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And then I think as part of the preservation restriction, I think there's some language in there about that you were committing to repaint the barn. Is that correct?
It's still something I would like to do. It was part of the tri-party agreement between me, the buyer, the town, and Warren Center.
Okay.
And the whole thing got delayed because the Warren Center didn't want to have a tri-party agreement or three-way agreement. So they worked, which also included a bunch of other things, including the waiver of the right-of-way, the A for B land swap, the new driveway, and the red barn being painted. So all that got satisfied except for painting. So the painting never really made it anywhere. I don't believe into the preservation agreement, because that's between me and the town and didn't include Warren Center. But I would still like to do it. I just need to talk to the Warren Center people about doing that.
I think what's happened is now that you've renovated the house and it looks pretty impressive, the barn stands out like a sore thumb. So
Yeah,
I think
sure
the
does.
sooner the better, Paul.
Yeah, I know. The thing of it is that, I'm kind of putting, lipstick on the proverbial pig. The barn's in rough shape, and any painter is going to say, well, you want me to paint this because the clapboards are all in rough shape. And
We know about old barns.
We do.
yeah, yes, you do. Yes, you do.
I have to replace them.
Yeah. So,
So is that
so I would like to, I'd like to get it painted. It'd be better than putting a fence up or do a whole lot of landscaping back there to sort of shield the eyesore that barn can be. I mean, it's a beautiful barn, but there's parts of it that are pretty ugly. So I need to work on that. So I'll be talking to them about doing that this spring.
Okay. So Paul, you will talk to FSU about that?
About the barn?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the
Okay.
kiosk.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I know that we had talked about a donation to the Historical Commission for the survey that they're in process, or they've started that, Michael? Right.
Yes.
So I think the last time we spoke, you had said that you were comfortable committing $10,000 towards that survey, with a potential of additional $10,000 if the cost was, if basically dependent on the cost. Have we closed the loop on that, Michael?
No, I mean, we're still in the process of getting an actual quote. But like the first phase we know is probably going to be around $8,000, with the second phase probably be a similar amount as well.
Okay.
So, I mean, Paul, what we could do is we could have the first, you could go ahead and make the donation for the first $10,000, which would pay for the first phase. And then when the second phase came forward for that same project, look at putting more money into that.
Okay. All right. Paul, is that something you're comfortable with?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm comfortable with it. I mean, the cost of this project is huge, way more than I thought, and no surprise, you guys are going through the same thing with Valentine. It just keeps going up and up and up, and I know there's some reimbursement of goodwill, if you will, for some of the history and how things have gone about in the last few months, which I still think is no fault of my own. I followed the drawings that I submitted in terms of the rehab and the demo of what we demoed and what we rebuilt. So I still stand by that. But I did say I would contribute, a contribution, donation to the Historical Commission. I would like to know what it is that I'm contributing towards. I know it's some sort of survey. I've read some of the minutes. There aren't many online. I read the agendas. I'm not sure whether this is part of the only thing I saw, I guess, was Stacy Spies is working on something. I don't think it's that, right, Michael?
No, it's Stacy.
So it's a project that Stacy's working on?
Yes.
All right. So other than what I just read in the agenda, I'd like to learn more what that is for. If and understand, I guess, the scope. Has the scope increased, decreased since we talked? I was willing to do 10,000. That's what you thought it might cost, but then you said there might be subsequent phases. So, I don't want to keep it open-ended. I'm willing to pay, 10 grand towards what was originally scoped in this project. And as long as we can have a conversation, I'm not sure who the appropriate person is to speak with, to just understand what it's all about and what the scope is and how the money will be spent.
Yeah, I think maybe what would be good, Paul, is because you also mentioned getting input from the Historical Commission on the kiosk. Maybe we meet with the Historical Commission and talk about this and get a little bit more definition as to, what the cost would be involving this project. And then also at the same meeting, we could get their input on the kiosk, the information that you'd want to put on the kiosk.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I'd like to do that, and even see some, maybe some documentation. I mean, I'm not scrutinizing it. I'm just more of a curiosity. I'd like to know what it's all about. Has the scope changed at all since October, increased or whatever? So again, just sort of, get more familiar with what it's all about. That would be, I think, very useful. And the key, obviously the kiosk included. And then there's also a third thing I like to talk to them about is even before the kiosk, I'd like to get something up on the house now that has, we always see the older homes that have the name that, when it was built and who lived there. I'd like to have their input on what that might look like. That's something I'd like to see done. Maybe, circa 1850, the Hall Yeager house, down below there, and they'd see, Henry Warren's, workshop, but something small and that kind of labels the home as a historical asset to the town. So that would be another reason to meet with them. But yeah, so that's all those things are important, I think, to discuss with them.
Right.
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds like a plan. And then the one other thing that I had on my list, I just wanted to make sure, we're at this point. I know the last, you had to send into the town a stamped survey, which you did, which is, it's compliant and, with what had been allowable. I just wanted to just make sure that, the stuff that he's doing, I don't know if Doug Scott's taken a look at the work or how that's, I just want to make sure before we kind of tie this up that the house, is sort of like in compliance with what we want it to be at this point.
Yeah, we'll do a review with Doug
Okay.
to make sure that everything's good. But just looking at the pictures that you sent, Paul, and kind of cross-referencing that with the drawings that were submitted, seems to be consistent.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
good.
I mean, that was sent in like a day or two after the meeting. There was emergency on that. I hired a new engineer, paid him a premium to get out there the next day. He did what he was supposed to. He stamped it. I paid the bill. I submitted it to Doug Scott, and I haven't heard a peep since. So we've moved forward. I'm assuming that's old history, and we're can put that to rest.
Yep, absolutely. Be moving forward. All right, so so you will work with FSU on about the barn and the kiosk, and you and Michael will get in front of the Historical Commission to talk about not only the kiosk, but the donation to the Historical Commission for the survey, and make sure that Paul has some information as to what, what the project looks like in the scope. And I think besides that, is there anything that has to be changed on the preservation restriction document? Is there anything that we need to do on that?
No, I think,
We're good?
looking at it this afternoon, I think this covers all the bases of it,
Okay,
of this historical restriction.
okay. All right, great. All right, so just have a couple things to just tie up, and then we look forward to seeing the the finished completed insides and outsides once everything is completed, hopefully in April, in time for spring. Does anyone else have any questions or concerns before we let Paul go?
Good, good,
We're good?
good. Thank you, Paul.
All right, thank you, Paul. We appreciate your coming back before us again, and I think we're like in a good place now. So, it's looking great. So we're glad that you're renovating the house and restoring it back to its glory from way back when. So we appreciate all the work that's gone into that. So
Thank you. I appreciate your time on this as well.
all right, thanks, Paul. Have a good night.
All right, you as well. Take care.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, so moving on in our agenda, we have, under old new business, we have a consent to transfer 100 Chestnut Street, Ashland Chestnut Realty LLC from Fafford to Baystone. So this is 100 Chestnut, which was recently permitted by the planning board, and this relates to the covenant that's been on the property that the Fafford company had drafted and between the planning board, the select board, and Fafford. And so this is transferring that covenant to Baystone. And I know Rory McDowell from Baystone is here tonight. Mr. McDowell, is there anything that you would like to add before we talk about this?
Sure, thank you. And thank you for hearing me this evening. So we're with Baystone Development, and we've been working with the planning board for well over a year now, as we've been working recently with the Conservation Commission as well. And we've completed our planning and approvals with both the Concom and the planning board. And we're hoping to get consent to do the transfer from Chestnut Realty, a Fafford company, to Baystone Ashland LLC. We're hoping to close on this property in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. McDowell. Joe, go ahead. Do you have a question?
I do, Madam Chair, thank you. I'm a little concerned. I mean, this is a consent for transfer. Is this a piece of property, or is this the covenant itself?
So this is the covenant. So this is a covenant, as Brandy had explained, that was signed in 2002 that outlined certain terms and conditions about the Wildwood property, and that was between the planning board, the select board, board of selectmen at the time, and the Fafford Corporation. As Mr. McDowell mentioned, now that the property is getting ready to be transferred, the ownership of that property is going to be transferred because he has his permits. This transfers the responsibilities and conditions of that covenant to Baystone Development.
So it doesn't eradicate the covenant itself and the terms and conditions of the covenant. It just gives him ownership of the covenant that he still has to follow.
Correct. And Roy, that is your impression as well, right?
Yes, we've been dealing with Lisa Mead and the planning board and following the covenant to a T. So any responsibilities under the covenant relative to the property will continue on under our ownership as well.
Okay, so that has nothing to do with that corner piece of property that's closer to the Wildwood Cemetery?
No. That parcel, we're actually asking to have permission to transfer as well. That's going to be a dog park, which we've gone to the planning board. We've dealt with the town, and we dealt with the DPW and the Conservation Commission. So it would be 100 Chestnut, and it would be that parcel as well, which we recently got an A&R plan approved through the planning board.
I have a problem with that, because that's not what we're here for. We were just here for the covenant, and that's why I asked this question, because I had a very funny suspicion that that piece of property was attached to that. And that, for us, this is the first time that I'm aware that this is going on. So I'm not ready to sign over this yet.
This doesn't transfer the property, Roy, does it? This transfers just the covenant that encompasses the property.
Well, first off, let me just say this. This is a highly unusual situation. Normally, you don't have to get consent from a town to sell something, but because it's in the covenant, we're following the letter of the law on this. And again, whatever rules and regulations and restrictions are under the covenant, regardless of whether the Farford people own it or we own it, nothing changes in that regard.
So, Michael, can you just clarify what the piece of property is? I thought it was just between the two streets.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well.
My understanding was the dog park that was going in is owned by the condo community near where they're doing the reconstruction of the ponds. And then to the left of that, there's gonna be a dog park that hits up to the cemetery.
So the retention pond is going to be transferred to the homeowners association. That's correct.
Okay.
But what, I need to understand what
Because
parcel of
my
property that we're
understanding for
talking
this
about.
piece, for this covenant, was between the two I mean, we didn't have a map, so there was no specific, but based on my understanding of the past covenant, for the mixed-use area, it was between the two streets. And that's sort of my question is, and I probably should have reviewed the covenant, but wasn't there a specific amount of retail that had to go in that space based on the covenant?
Yes, we've worked with the planning board, and that's fully been adjudicated and approved by the planning board. And again, the dog park is something that we propose doing not only for the benefit of the residents at 100 Chestnut, but it's also for the use and the benefit of the entire community behind us, which, they fully support.
Okay, but that, will you own that small parcel? Because, again, my understanding, similar to Joe, is I didn't realize that section was part of this covenant.
It's a very small piece. It's less than an acre of land.
Right, I'm aware of that, but,
I just need a clarification. How would that be part of the covenant exists in and of itself right now, and this is just a transfer of the covenant. So how
That's
does
correct.
that?
It doesn't change anything relative to the covenant.
Is that,
well,
but
no,
is
and
that, I'm
piece
not
of-
sure
it
that's
sounds that
happened,
piece of
though.
land is part of the covenant. Right,
Piece
the
of
whole-
land
the
would
whole-
probably
The
be-
whole neighborhood was part of the covenant. So that little section would be part of the covenant too,
So-
I would think, but,
So Roy, the transfer of property is between yourself and Fafford's Corporation, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you're not looking for permission from the town. You don't need a town approval, right, to transfer that property?
Well, apparently you do, because it says in the covenant that if you transfer ownership, now let's be clear, the covenant is recorded on the deed. The only way the covenant can be changed is that there needs to be a mutual hearing of the planning board and the select board, and it needs to be a supermajority vote of 66%, including the approval of the ownership of it, to change it. So I can't change it. Only your mutual boards can change what's ever in the covenant. So no matter who owns the land, the covenant doesn't change. The rules are the same regardless who owns it.
And what piece of property are we talking? There's a triangular piece of property that,
Yes, it's a piece adjacent to the cemetery and short of the detention basins.
So, is it
it's
possible?
not separate.
It's an A&R plan was approved by the planning board, so it actually is a separate parcel.
Can you bring up Google Maps here? See if we can figure this out.
There's no separate property line.
If I
Well,
may,
there
Madam
wouldn't be
Chair.
showing now. Hasn't
Roy,
been
I'm
reported
thinking
yet.
it's
Roy,
here.
I just want to ask, is that piece of property
That's what
that
I'm thinking it
that
is.
I'm referring to, is that the one that has the metal gate that's closer to Chestnut Street itself?
Well,
The metal gate's
no,
fine.
it's a little further down. It's
Little
it's right
further down.
adjacent to this- Yeah,
Okay.
right adjacent to the cemetery. It's a small wooded area.
Here,
Right,
right in
okay,
here.
that was my concern, thank you.
Yes,
Okay, you
exactly.
just clarified it for me, thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
We're
you
working
still
on
need-
trying
It abuts
to,
the
trying to get the map
cemetery,
up.
But there's no
Hold on.
We think we
graves
found.
right there.
Okay.
You know, I think if we can look at it.
yeah, we're,
Yeah, Roy, just bear with us, we're gonna try to pull up the map of the area, so we know exactly what we're talking about.
So I'm just trying to get oriented. So, but
I can point it out if you pull it up.
But Roy, so this is a transfer from Fafford to you that you've been discussing with the planning board and the residents. What's the
Correct.
relationship of this particular, whether we like it or not, but what's the relationship of this proposal to the covenant?
We have
Well,
to
again,
approve the
nothing,
transfer.
relative to the covenant, nothing changes. It's only a function of ownership of the land that changes, not the covenant.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to figure out
You're
why
asking
why
do
this
I
is
need
relevant
your
to the
permission
covenant.
sell,
That's-
correct?
Why is this proposal to use this land, good or bad, relevant to us approving the covenant? Wouldn't we want to transfer the covenant unless we want to stop the entire project? I mean,
I think the question that Joe has, and again, when I was looking at this, it said 100 Chestnut Street. So my understanding is that parcel was between the two roads. So as you're looking at the map there, you see all the homes to the right and then to the front of it. But I had heard that they were looking to do a dog park. I didn't understand. I didn't realize that that was part of 100 Chestnut Street. I thought that was already part of the homeowner association where the retention ponds are, and then that parcel that's next to the cemetery.
So is
Okay.
it that top piece there, Michael? You see
So,
this? That's-
so I think we
this
should
is-
yeah, that's 100 Chestnut, that area. Now, if you go just south of, down the page where it becomes light green, you see where the light green is? The other way.
The other way, Michael. Go toward downtown
Okay.
Yeah.
on Chestnut Street.
You see that
right-
property line? Yeah, but you see the property line where there's a different color green?
No?
Yeah, go up.
Yeah,
So right, yeah.
Okay, that's the
that's
cemetery.
the cemetery.
Now, if you back up just a little
Other side
bit,
of the property
Yeah, so
line.
that's what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so
no,
there,
a little to your left,
more on Chestnut Street.
right there, right
Yeah.
there is the dog park.
Okay, but it's carved out within the property that was already there.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, again, it's not a buildable lot. You can't build anything on it. It doesn't have the appropriate amount of whatever. And under the covenant, you can't build on it anyway. So it's, the interesting thing about the covenant when you read it, the covenant is, we spent a lot of time and have our lawyers studying this thing. The covenant is recorded at the registry of deeds on this entire property. And it's a very, very detailed, restrictive covenant. It's got a lot of rules and regulations, which we had to follow to the letter to get this thing approved. Now, we're not asking to change the covenant, at least not at this stage. What we're asking is permission to have the property, consent to have the property sold, because under the covenant, it states that when the current owner sells it, it needs to get consent from the planning board and the board of selectmen.
Okay.
That's all it is. It's frankly, it's kind of one of those not to be unreasonably withheld situations.
Right.
I think it's more of an FYI for the boards to make sure they know who owns it.
Okay, so where the cursors are right now, that is the dog park, but has that property been divided into three pieces? Did I hear you say that?
Well, no, it's one piece. Well, let's put it this way. It's one piece carved off from the rest of it.
Okay,
The rest of it will get, once those basins are done, that will get transferred to the homeowners. The dog park, assuming we get permission, will get transferred to us. We will build the dog park, and the dog park will be an amenity for the entire community up behind us, including 100 Chestnut for
And the ba-
dogs.
I'm sorry, Roy, and the base, the basins will be in front of that or behind it?
To the
on how you're
front
looking at
and
it.
to the, everything except the dog park would be basins. You see that area that just, if you drop your cursor a little further down, keep going a little more, right there. And if you
Yep.
went from there all the way back, that's where the basins are.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
and
See
that's
'em
where
as
the
you
gate
drive
is.
by.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Now
the
that,
There you
It's
go.
gone.
That's all basin. It's a small little corner.
All right. So I know it's, the covenant, I think, is complicated, and I know it's just.
and does that give you a clean title, Roy? Do you have a
It
clean
d-
title of
it-
that? Because I knew that at some point there was an issue with the title issue.
Yeah, we clean that up, working
Okay.
with Lisa Mead.
All right, so as of right now, you have clear title to that.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is anybody,
Not to complicate the issue, but we are going to be coming back to you, and I've discussed this with Peter Matchek, and he's discussed it with Lisa Mead. There's a unique aspect to the permitting here, and I'm sure it was done when Fafford was building all these condos, and it said that he could not pull more than 100 permits in a calendar year. I'm sure that's because of school children and everything else. Well, that still exists, and at some point, we're going to come back to you and hopefully have a conversation about the impracticality of the remaining portion of the project. Because it would unduly delay for a year the construction of all this, and we can get into that later. Just to let you know, at some point, we're going to come have a conversation with you about it.
So Roy, that would be a change to the covenant, right?
It would. That would require a 2/3 vote from the planning board and the selectmen.
okay. All right, but let's not kind of get into that tonight. 'Cause
I agree.
Let's just
Nobody.
keep it pretty separate. I think it's probably in our best interest to do that.
Okay.
Is there, does anyone have any other questions, concerns?
Have we run this by town council to make sure that what we just discussed, everything is, now we have a better understanding? Because, again, this is the first time with the land issue. I just thought it was the covenant, but if the land is tied to this covenant, and I don't know if Lisa was aware or not, is that something?
She's aware of it, and from what I'm told by Peter, and I don't know if Peter's confirmed it with Michael, that she was fine with this.
I mean,
Well, to
that has
transfer-
that's been relayed to me that she's fine with this.
I just want
And
to hear.
she helped
from-
draft it, because the initial draft of this, we did have concerns with, or Lisa did have concerns with, and there was a couple versions that went back and forth.
Okay, as long as we're talking about the same version of what.
Well,
we're
the final
talking-
version is Lisa's version.
Yeah.
Okay. Roy, please understand that, I'm skeptical whenever it comes to any properties that have to deal with an agency that no longer, is owning this property, so,
I 100% understand that.
okay, thank you.
All right. So if no one else has any further questions or comments, can I get a motion?
Yep, I move that we approve the consent to transfer the consent to transfer the covenant, from
If I could please just say, if you could please make that transfer of the covenant and the property.
Yeah,
Not what
I'm
we're-
not-
No, that's
Yeah.
not what's here.
It's not what's
because
in
the
front of us.
property gets transferred when you do your purchase and
That's
sale, right? That's
Well,
what,
it does, except the covenant says we need your consent to transfer the property.
Well, that's a different,
Yeah.
That's a different thing than what we've,
What does Lisa's document say, if you don't mind my asking? I don't have it in
doesn't
front of
mention
me.
the
So
property
it
at all,
says
it's just a
consents,
covenant.
so this is what it says. The town acting by and through its select board and planning board hereby consents to the transfer of the interests in the MUSD covenant applicable to the Baystone property by seller to Baystone buyer in accordance with section 24 of the MUSD
though
covenant.
it does have a book and page reference,
That's for the covenant.
right?
Yes,
but not for
And
the
I'm
property.
fine with that.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, then I'm gonna say, I move that we approve the transfer of the covenant as written and presented,
Thank you.
Is there a
because
second?
it does have an
I
agreed
will
by a portion
second
of the
that.
property.
I will second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Yolanda and a second by Rob. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes 5-0. So Roy, you're
Originally, yes.
you're all set. So hopefully.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good luck.
I should
Thank you.
probably be a little bit more involved in the planning stuff.
Michael, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yep.
I get concerned when it comes to the property aspect of it, because that definitely changes the whole animal here.
Right.
Well, it does say, seller has agreed to sell, and Baystone Ashland LLC, a Massachusetts limited liability company, has agreed to buy a portion of the property.
And that property is 100 Chestnut Street.
Yeah, again, it's not,
Right. So,
like I said, I wasn't even aware of the A&R lot, so
yeah.
lesson learned on this one.
Yeah.
And I think,
Well, I would say, could I?
Let's put a big star on this one.
So I would say if we
Lessons
need,
learned.
if we need to do something with the actual property, like if we need to take action on that,
Yeah.
then we should talk to Lisa and make sure we're kind of, we know what we're,
And the other thing, if I could add, this is, actually, Roy, this has been going on for really months. My understanding of the history of this is that the residents of that community came forward with some issues, and this was an offer made to them, and the planning board, it's gone before the planning board. I'm not sure where they are with it, but it's
permitted.
It's permanent.
it's permitted, so this
It's
is all
it's
part
fully
of the.
permitted and the appeal periods are gone by.
Has the-
Again, we've been working with the planning board for a year and a half on
Yeah.
this.
Has the
been a
dog
while.
park
We've
been
been working
permitted?
with the
That's, I
neighborhood
guess,
groups
what
as
I'm
well.
wondering about.
Roy, has the dog park been permitted? Has that part been done or not yet?
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, the dog park was permitted as part of this process?
As part of what the planning board agreed to, right?
Yes,
So-
the planning board did, and the planning board approved the approval not required subdivision plan as well.
Zoning change conditions. We should have got a copy of
Because
those.
for the dog park, you probably have to go in front of our conservation commission as well.
We did that already.
Yeah, they
Oh,
kind of went through the whole
Okay,
deal with it.
okay.
Okay.
Well, Roy, thank you so much for being here tonight, because I think it was helpful for us to hear from you directly and get more information, because,
Yeah.
I'm sorry
But
you
you
didn't get, I'm sorry you didn't get the full information. I was unaware of that.
So we have to approve the transfer? Is that our understanding?
let's talk to Lisa
Yeah,
and
okay.
see if there's any
Dory, I
other
hope you
action.
understand my reservations on this. It has nothing to do with you or their project. It's just, I just want to hear land involved, and I don't see anything with respect to that in this. So it's part of the covenant.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's complicated.
All right.
So,
We're not attacking you. I just want to let you realize that, okay?
Thank you very much.
All right.
all right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roy.
Thank you, Roy.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, moving on in our agenda, the Town Forest Committee discuss expanding the committee membership from 5 to 7 members. And, well, let's talk about that first. Let's do that portion of the agenda item first. So we had received an email from Rob St. Germain, who I know is on the call tonight.
Stop sharing that screen.
Yeah. Hold on, we're gonna stop sharing so we can see people. About wanting that the committee had voted to expand its membership from 5 to 7 members, and wanted to take that action. And so this had happened. Initially, Rob had sent us an email right before our reappointment process in August. Our reappointment process went, kind of, is more of an automatic process, where we had reappointed Kara Hume and Michael Morrissey as associate members, because we had never discussed expanding the committee membership from 5 to 7. So, Rob, is there anything that you would like to add before we discuss it amongst ourselves?
It's pretty straightforward.
Only that, we had a good debate about this, and we went for a couple of years with a couple associate members, and they expressed how it would be beneficial to really feel more a part of the committee if they were also voting members. Add to that the fact that our committee is very much a working committee. We're not only setting policy for the forest, we're maintaining the forest. And so the more hands that feel a sense of ownership and part of the process is beneficial to the success of what we're doing.
Okay,
Makes sense.
thank you, Rob. Any thoughts? Anybody want to start?
It's straightforward. I'm ready to make the motion.
Okay, all
I
right.
move that we approve the increase of the Town Forest Committee from 5 voting members to 7.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. And then as a second part to that, the Town Forest Committee had asked us to appoint Kara Hume and Amal Rain as full voting members.
I move that we appoint Kara Holm and Amal Rain as 2 full voting members to the Town Forest Committee,
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
with a
Aye.
term that expires 8/31/24.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, folks.
So that was nice and quick. So tell Kara and Amal that they are full voting members at this point, and we are all set. Great.
Appreciate all the work you guys do, Rob.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Rob.
Rob.
And
Happy
thank you
New
for
Year, Rob.
Thank you for being here tonight, too.
Yes.
So,
My pleasure.
See you, Rob.
take
Good
care.
night.
All right.
Okay, so moving on, the next item on our agenda is an update on the MBTA station. Michael, do you want to kind of give us an update?
Sure. I think towards one of our, actually, it might have been our last meeting of 2022, Rob gave us the good news that he had heard that Keolis was actually going to do some work on the MBTA station here in Ashland. So I was able to confirm that that is the case. They are planning a quote-unquote refresh. We're still waiting to hear exactly what that scope is. But as soon as we get it, I'll pass it along, and glad we're on their radar screen.
We're thinking just clean up, and it's not like, we're not expecting elevators to be added or anything like that, are we?
I think they're thinking more of like general maintenance.
Okay.
But obviously we'll push for as broad a scope as possible.
Okay.
And to do as much work as possible.
Great.
So this is a follow-up to, the MBTA board had come, like Rob had put together a meeting, an on-site
Yep.
meeting at the MBTA station where we walked through the station, and so I think they realized what kind of shape our station is in, which is a sad state of affairs. And so through the work that Rob's done with the advisory board, and we had put together a letter and to advocate for it. So it's great that, they seem to
Yeah,
be.
we made it in their plans.
Yeah.
In some aspects, so that's good.
So, and you said that this will happen, like this refresh or whatever this is going to look like will happen this calendar year,
Yes,
correct?
in 2023, hopefully in the spring.
Nice.
So,
Great, that's awesome. So, more to come on that
yeah,
once we hear.
Squeaky wheel
more
does get the.
details. So-
yeah.
I played
so-
them the Sanford and Sons theme song. I think that did it. That put them
It,
right.
it worked.
Dee, dee,
Good.
dee, dee, dee.
It must have worked.
Does
Here's to
anybody else have any
2023.
questions or thoughts before we
Say it when I believe it.
recover?
I'll believe it when
Yeah,
I
there
see
you
it.
That's
go.
right.
Well, there is that.
Because there's other things that we've been promised, and
True.
do we have to apply for anything, or?
No, don't need to do anything like that.
All right,
their property.
we're good, yeah.
Anyway.
All
okay.
right, good news. All right, so our consent agenda, before we have a motion on the consent agenda, I do want to pull out the first item, which is the regular session minutes, just because we had only reviewed the minutes from October 26th and November 9th. So we're not approving minutes from October 12th, November 30th, or December 7th on there. So, so I'm
So do you
going
wanna
to
do
pull
the,
that out. Yeah, we'll pull it
okay.
out separately.
Okay.
So,
I
so
move that we approve the consent agenda minus item A.
is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes 5-0.
And then we want to approve the 26th and the 9th.
Yes.
I move that we approve the minutes presented for October 26th, 2022, and November 9th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, that passes 5-0. We're good with our consent agenda. Thank you very much.
Hopefully at our next meeting, we'll have the other minutes.
Yep.
Okay. And these get, once we approve them, they get the
Uploaded to the
approved-
website.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay.
Moving on to priority project update. Michael, you want to?
Yeah,
about downtown?
yeah, a couple things related to downtown. So I think at our last meeting, I had let you know that they were jacking under the tracks and encountered groundwater issues. So they have had an opportunity to bring an engineer in and evaluate that. There is going to be an additional cost that we have to pay to de-water that site to get us to the level that we can go ahead and do the boring underneath the tracks. So it's going to be about $80,000. So that's unfortunate, but it does allow us to move forward. So, so there's that piece on the undergrounding. The other piece is a lot more visible, which is the line striping. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but some of the fog lines, which are the white lines, were, I'll just say, weren't painted correctly. Actually, the whole job wasn't done correctly. So we're talking with Gioso. We've expressed our displeasure with them about that work.
They may let people go over some of the yellow lines before they were dry?
Yep. And like I said, on some of the fog lines, instead of cleaning, the sides up against the gutter or up against the granite, they just painted over the sticks and debris and everything. So Gioso, it was a sub of Gioso's, so, Gioso is unhappy as well. So
Okay.
we will get that rectified.
So what is
Without
the
additional
solution for
cost
that?
to us, right?
Oh, no, at no cost.
What is the solution?
So they're going to be able to clean some of the smears. They'll be able to clean that, and then they'll reline after they sweep.
Clean.
Yeah,
Okay.
sweep the streets.
Okay.
They'll reline then. It's important. I've told them that it's important that it doesn't look like a fix. It looks like it was a job done
Sure.
right.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about the logistics and everything tomorrow at our downtown meeting.
And the other scenario with the vaults down at Mill Pond Park area, has that been a solution found?
So there's a potential solution, which is running the conduit alongside the road. So just extending the conduit, but that has to be looked at in a little bit more
So they're
detail.
still exploring that. And then how about an update on Mill Pond Park itself? It looks like, that's been completely closed off. The boardwalk's been removed.
Yeah, so we're replacing that observation deck. One of the things that we'll be doing is we'll be filling in that sluiceway that was covered over with the old boardwalk, and we'll be constructing a new observation deck. Do we need Concom approval for that?
You're feeling something.
So no boardwalk. That's eliminated.
So it'll be grass pavers, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking
Okay.
about.
And
So-
just the observation deck rebuilt.
Correct. So, and then we're also in the process of preparing the existing pedestrian bridges, the metal ones, the ones that are painted green. We're going to be prepping them and then painting them in the near future as well. So they'll have more of a color scheme that matches with the composite material that looks like wood.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so they'll look more like the big the arch bridge that's across. Okay.
Correct.
Good. I
May
did-
I ask why we had to replace those boards so soon
Yeah, from
There's-
the boardwalk.
on the boardwalk?
I think you're talking about the old one, right?
So Joe, we're talking about the boardwalk that's closest to Ashland House or Ocean
Right.
House.
Yeah.
That section.
The one that was done
Yeah.
by
So
some
we should
people
just
fixed
repair.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a
Okay.
couple
I
years
fixed it with Ed Hart and
You're thinking the
Dale.
other
We did a
side
lot
of the
work
park.
on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. See, I don't associate that as part of the Mill Pond project.
Right.
I consider that in the ocean house, so.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So,
I do want to acknowledge both the town and I'm assuming Gioso for cleaning up the parking lot.
yes.
There was a lot of staging that was there and, clearly necessary for the construction going on. But once that slowed down, it was no longer necessary for it to be there. So
Right.
they have moved it and now it's back to a functional
Yeah.
parking lot, so appreciate that.
And the mill building project is still in front of the planning board. Has it made
So-
any progress? Is there any?
I think they're really still at the beginning process, from what I understand. So I think at the last planning board meeting, they covered some of the health and safety issues, especially related to the Nyanza plume and how those were going to be addressed. From my perspective, I think the biggest sticking point is really more the design of the building, and I expect that's going to take a while to work out.
Yep.
So,
Joe?
And Chair, can I just go back, Michael, to the downtown project and the area that they're working now by the tracks? That they have a way of, getting that tunnel through and stuff. Are they making it easier for us to start the quiet zone area? Work that needs to get done, can that be, piggybacked with that? So we don't have to dig up everything again for the quiet zone restructuring?
so any work that we can do simultaneously, we're doing. But really, the work for the quiet zone on Main Street is really more with the arms, the mast arms,
Mess dams, okay.
and the island.
Okay,
So,
all right, thank you.
so that's downtown. And just to, for anybody who's watching, just a reminder, we'll continue to work on boring underneath the tracks and getting the utility lines underneath. And then in the spring, we'll focus on the area between the intersection on Main Street in front and the intersection of Main Street and Homer, and getting the granite and the sidewalks done there, redoing the islands. So I know some people have expressed some concerns about the narrowness of some of the parking spaces in the travel lane, especially in front of Lunkers. So the island will be reduced and redone.
Right.
So that'll give a little more room. And then also the brick-looking crosswalks will also be installed as well.
Good.
So it's coming along.
It
I mean,
is.
I think everybody has had a chance to, see it with the new lights and everything. And
Yeah.
it's
The lights are great.
The lights are nice.
They're really
with
nice.
with the brick banding and everything, it looks good.
Yeah.
And where's the timeline for the lines and wires to come down and telephone poles to be removed?
Ooh, that's another question, Joe. So, my goal is end of summer 2023. So Comcast and Verizon still need to install some of their equipment in the underground conduits and the vaults, so they need to do that. We'll be going out to bid soon to do the work associated with making the connections from the street to the buildings, the underground connections. And so that needs to be done first. So the equipment needs to be installed first. Building connections need to be made. Then we can start talking about taking the wires
So
off.
Eversource won't be involved in the reconnection of the lines to the individual homes?
No, Eversource and Verizon and Comcast will be involved, but it's really more at the home site.
Okay,
What we're talking about is how do you get it from the street to the home site,
gotcha.
to the meter,
Okay, thank you.
okay?
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's a number of communities trying to do what we're doing in regards to undergrounding, so I'm sure there's
Yeah.
a lot of demand right now on these
There-
utilities.
Yeah, there is. They've got plenty of time, though. Eversource has actually been pretty good in terms of installing their equipment and
That's
stuff
good.
and getting things
Good.
out. Really, the holdout's been Verizon, so
Hmm.
it's been proven the most difficult.
Hmm.
So that's downtown. A public safety building, we really don't have too much of an update with regards to the new public safety building. Jen and Beth have been working, as you know, we put out an RFI for the existing buildings. We got some information back, but we've kind of started outlining a process of what it would look, how we start getting public input in regards to what should be there and how we move forward. Jen, do you want to just give an update on that?
So, did we report out, I wasn't here at the last, that we received just one?
Just one.
Yeah.
One formal response to the RFI. Since that process, we have had an interested party contact the town. We've asked for a letter of interest, which is something that we did when we went through the Valentine process. So, for that project, we had a nonprofit that was interested, just wasn't ready for capital planning, but at least gave us a letter of interest so we could at least understand where they're coming from and whether they'd be ready to potentially do something. So what we're hoping to do is to put together the information that we obtained through the RFI and then through this letter of interest. And then also we reached out to folks. We had 4 or 5 people who had reached out and had actually walked the property. And so Beth has reached out to those people to just gather information about, you were interested enough to come out, what were some of the reasons you decided not to submit an RFI, just so we can better understand what we're trying to market or offer possible investors. So put all of that information together. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we could have a public forum to talk about that, get some input and feedback that will help shape an RFP. And then we can create an RFP. It would be a pretty aggressive timeline to try to get it to May town meeting. But I know that there is some interest, and so it may be worth putting on an RFP, see if we actually get an interested party. And if we had it at the middle of January, if we had a public forum, it'll give me a couple of weeks to work in some feedback. I can have the bones of an RFP just from what we've learned, get some feedback and put that out on the street at the beginning of February, perhaps. Some of the feedback we got with the Valentine proposal was that we only put it out for 45, so I'd look to put it out for 60 days. It gives people 2 months to really put together a proposal. I think this is actually a decent time in the calendar. For the Valentine, we were sort of going into the holidays, and I think that was a problem. So this is, I think, is a decent time. It would also give us an opportunity that if we do get multiple RFP proposals, that we could possibly do interviews at a public meeting, and so there can be further public input, or at least maybe we can gather some questions and allow people to ask questions, and that would probably be in April timeframe. So it would sort of lead right in to town meeting, and there would be some conversations that would be had.
What do you think the expectation is for town meeting?
So we would have to get approval to either sell or lease the
Okay,
property.
to
And so,
lease it.
so it would sit on the warrant probably before we have RFPs, but
Okay.
it would be very general in terms of getting the
Okay.
approval, and then we would present it at town meeting, the
Okay.
much more specific information that we receive. Or if we didn't get anything, we would just pull the warrant article. But I
Okay.
think just to sort of hold that, if somebody is interested and they're ready to go, rather than having to wait all the way to November, and then we start to fall into that like
Right,
weird
no, I
timeframe.
was just trying to figure out what you would be presenting at the town meeting, okay.
Yeah, the approval to, and I think the way we would have to do it, because we won't know if we're going to sell it or lease it, we would have to do it very broad, and then refine it through the motion.
So do you think we will have more than one interested party that would,
I mean,
it would be a great
it would be
problem
a
to
great
have.
problem to
Yeah.
have. So, the initial, the person that we received the RFI from did have a lot of questions that I think they would use this time to explore. Some about relief in terms of zoning relief. The cost of renovating is going to be significant.
Right.
And so I think a lot is going to rely on how much we're willing to sort of not sell it for. How much are we
Right.
willing to let that property go for?
And
Because
can you tell us if it's a commercial or a nonprofit?
it's a
commercial.
it's a commercial,
Okay.
but no residential. That was
No,
requirement.
right,
Yeah.
that was required. No,
Yeah.
just, okay.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, although the one proposal that we did, or expression of interest that we did get, did mention the fact that, a couple of units would probably make it a lot more
Sweeten it,
palatable
yeah.
to people. But, obviously, if we can do this without having residential, that would be,
Yeah.
that would be the win.
goal for
And
that
so,
section.
and just take me through the process. So if we had more than one interested party that completed the RFI, would we be reviewing those? Or how does that, and making a decision, like how does that, is that
So
typically?
usually the way an RFP works is that we would put together a review,
Team.
an evaluation team.
Okay.
And so oftentimes we try to sort of pull from people who might have different points of views. So I always have to sit on it as the procurement officer, but we usually pull in staff that have different expertise, and then we often, depending on which
What it
project
is.
it is. So, we sort of start to talk about, would we have somebody potentially from the ABA? Would we have a resident? How would,
Okay.
and you obviously want to keep it reasonably
Size.
because you all have to take the time to review it, and there's like a required highly advantageous, not advantageous sort of,
Rubric?
yes,
Yeah.
that you all have to fill out.
Go through each of them and answer the questions for each of them.
But I think the
Yep.
benefit of potentially having the opportunity, if we did have more than one, to have public interviews with the proposers, is that we can allow for questions
Yeah.
within a framework. But people could at least, and then offer some feedback to us, and we would have a little bit of time, and I think you can build that into the rubric.
Okay.
Did Jen answer your question? It sounded like you were asking.
So it sounds
ultimately-
like, and this is, maybe I'm back to that point. So it sounds like the committee would review and then present those results probably to us. Is that, or no?
No,
Isn't the select board
you
responsible
would be
for real estate
responsible for transferring property
property, right?
after you get the town meeting.
That's correct.
Town
So
meeting
ultimately,
authority to do
it would
that.
be the select board to, subject to town meeting's approval.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as it stands right now, we have one interested party for one specific building. We have two buildings, but there is no expressed interest for the other?
Well,
Long
no,
Beach
so,
building?
so the person who, the submittal would potentially be interested in both buildings. They would at least explore that. And again, I think that, so that,
And this
They-
was only for information, so this is, and it's
It's
now
not binding,
based on
yeah.
the information that you're gonna write the RFB. But it
Right.
sounds like you wanna do a public forum based on that information before you
just so
complete
people
and write the
understand.
RFP.
Yeah, I just think, I think people have all sorts of ideas and what it could be. And so we put it out there. Instead of doing a feasibility study, we thought, let's
Right.
put it out there, see what kind of appetite it is to invest in that property. And interestingly enough, we did have people who came that were restaurant owners, and that, I know that was one of the hopes of the community. And there's some size limitations that they thought were maybe too big for them to make that investment. No, to actually have to the space is actually too small.
Too small.
Oh, okay.
To build it a full kitchen from their perspective. So
I
they weren't
see.
necessarily ready to put that level of investment. And so that was some of the feedback that we'd like to share, just because, we're getting that from people who have done this previously. And so
Right.
that's some of their concerns and what sort of thwarted them from submitting a full
Submitting
RFI.
something, okay.
And just the reality of it, of where we are with it.
Right.
And right now, it's one parcel, right? So it's one.
It is, yeah.
So the fire and the police are one parcel, so that's.
Yep.
Okay.
So before we get into a quagmire like we did with the Valentine property, when the fire station was redone and redesigned,
Yep.
any CPC money that was used out of the historical account to redesign and redo that building? Because you said the word lease, and I got a little nervous. My toes
Yeah.
actually started to curl.
Not to redesign or do anything. There was some CPC money utilized really early in the process to redo some of the floors.
Okay.
So will that cause
Right.
any issues if we try to do a long-term lease or sell the building?
I don't think,
No,
yeah, Lisa's.
We,
looked
yeah, we
into
talked to
this.
Lisa. I mean, we did put the, in the RFI, we did talk about a preservation restriction
Restriction on
for
the-
the facade
yeah.
of the fire station.
Yeah,
So we
moving
wanted people to
forward.
understand that there are some limitations in terms of
Right.
what they can do,
Okay.
to the front.
So they could add on if they needed to.
At the back?
To the back. And
Yeah.
If a restaurant decided that's where they wanted to go.
Or to the side,
they
yeah, I
could-
mean,
They could actually add on the kitchen area in the back and do what they needed to do to keep, the restaurant aspect alive.
yeah, they have to look at setbacks and all of those
Yeah.
things, but yeah,
no,
yeah,
I-
but yeah.
I get-
I think the
okay.
real limitation, though, is just the footprint of the apparatus base. I mean, you've been there many,
Oh,
many
yeah.
times. It's small.
It is small.
And for a restaurant, I think it's just not necessarily a feasible footprint without adding on somewhere, in some fashion.
Yeah, so you're gonna have a significant amount of cost of renovation, right? So you need to be able to have enough seats in this place to generate the revenue necessary to pay for that cost. And so far, people that have looked at that do not see a path forward that way. So, before we started this process, there were a lot of things out there in the community about what it should be: brewery, restaurant, nonprofit arts center. So the reason we went through this RFI process to see what is real out there. And so now that we've got information from that process, we take that and distill it into presentable information, have this public forum, say this is what we've learned through this process. Based on what we have, this is what looks feasible. Are there things that look more attractive to you as the public to?
Yeah, and I was so, because I can see who pulls any of our bid documents, and so we had, we did have nonprofit theater group pull it, we did have brewers pull it, we did have restaurant owners, architects, development companies that want, clearly, when I looked at them up, definitely do housing, and we had an exclusion for housing. So there was interest across the board, and then, we can sort of see who showed up to do the walkthroughs. We accommodated anybody who called to ask right up to the date, just to make sure that we could try to get as much information and interest. And then the people who actually submitted or are willing to put a letter of, at least a letter of interest to sort of
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Don't really have an update on Mendez, except that appears to be going
Moving forward,
on
I wasn't
track.
able to make the last meeting, so
Yeah.
hopefully for our next one, I'll have an update.
I've had to do a few paperwork things with the MSBA, but
Yep.
it's routine.
Okay.
Valentine project, so work is continuing on the barn. They did encounter some issues in the foundation with there's some boulders in there.
Not
so-
uncommon, right?
Not uncommon.
Yeah.
So they're looking at working around that. We also have some significant runoff coming from the property behind. Yeah, some water runoff. Obviously, it's a hill
Yeah.
behind there. So looking at addressing that.
Yeah.
And is
You'll-
it part of the Valentine property, or is it part of the property in back of them?
the property in back.
Ah, interesting.
So-
cleaning all that up really didn't help out the situation.
One could make that argument.
Yeah. So what do they do? Put something like a fringe drain in around the building?
So right now, we're just making sure that it's dewatered.
Yeah.
Like in the basement. We'll have to figure out what the long-term solution is.
All right. Last time we talked about the exterior, the siding, and we had a couple of folks that are in the business recommend certain type of siding as opposed to, pine or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So any consideration of that? Have you looked into that?
I've asked them for a quote to go to the cement fiber board.
Yeah.
I have not received that
Okay.
yet.
Good.
So,
Just to make it clear, Mike, we're not looking at vinyl or aluminum siding at all. We never have and never will.
no,
Okay, just-
vinyl's never been part of the
No.
equation.
No, but again, I wanna put people's minds at ease.
Well, we know it's only a few people who are saying vinyl, and they know it's not true.
I understand
Just,
that, but there are other people that
stir
aren't
up
privy
stuff.
to, yeah,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to shut the door on that, thank you.
Yeah. So,
Well, I think from my perspective, I think, none of us here are construction professionals. And I think it's probably prudent that we at least address, some commentary from professionals.
Right.
yeah, and so I think with a project like this, you've got to look, there are different types of professionals that you probably want to hear from. So you have historical preservation professionals that you would want to hear from. You have construction professionals that you would want to hear from. So I think it just all goes into the
Yeah,
into the
and
big
at this
pot.
point, all we asked for was the consideration to look into it, to
Right.
get a quote and to compare it,
Yeah.
Which is fair.
right?
Which is fair. And then Yolanda and Carl and I are going to hopefully meet next week and
Oh,
talk
good.
about the
Good.
CR. So
I think that's, Carl said Monday at 5.
has he? Okay,
I
so
think he
that'd
said
be
he could
good.
do that, so we'll just confirm.
Oh,
Monday.
No,
So that's
thanks for
moving
doing that. You
forward.
guys keep things moving
Yeah,
forward.
that's
We
great.
should be hearing from an organization who can possibly hold the CR soon.
That's great.
So-
If I don't hear
nice.
from him by next week,
Yeah.
I'll reach back out.
Yeah.
Cool.
Elliott Street?
So Elliott Street?
Elliott Street?
You're meeting at Elliott Street.
Oh,
We haven't determined
I
a
think that's a
meeting
good idea.
location yet.
I think you should.
So we'll figure it out.
Thank you for doing that, and Yolanda, thank you for
Yes.
working on that.
Oh, no, I think it's
that's good.
important. It's
Yeah.
something we need to do.
And I think it's the logical next step.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
And then Warren District, we really covered, the Hall House earlier tonight and nothing on the barn right
Yeah,
now.
the barn's still on
Yep.
hold kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Before we move on, Brandy, any thoughts on the, putting the strategic/comprehensive plan either on the priority project list and/or somewhere else on the agenda on a regular basis, rather than just address it in board report, let's say? I know you've had a meeting, and I don't think it was, it's been presented, at least that initial
Yeah.
meeting, so just a thought,
Well, I think it makes sense to put it as a standing item once we get going, but we don't really have a
Yeah.
whole lot to report.
Or, right now,
Once-
maybe it's, because we won't have another meeting before our next select board meeting.
Yeah,
So
Okay.
for next
Yeah.
meeting, we won't have anything, but maybe moving forward, the first meeting of the month, we could
sounds
put something on
Yeah.
and keep that
Yeah.
consistent,
On
and
a
have an
regular
update
basis.
from the
Yeah,
previous
I think,
meeting.
to
Yeah.
me, I think we all agree it's a priority project.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, and I think once we get like the steering committee in place and the consultant in place, we're gonna have regular reports back to the select board too, just as to
Good.
how it's going and what's happening with
Okay.
it.
And we'll have to do some things with the select board.
Yeah.
The RFP, I mean, the consultant discussion, the select board's part of that. Some of the
Yeah.
steering committee appointments, the select board is part of that, so.
Good, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, moving into
Sure,
town manager reports. So the first thing I have on is the FY '24 budget update. I had included in your packet the budget instructions that we had submitted to department heads. And, you know, it's pretty detailed. Because we're asking for some more information, we've extended the date that they have to submit their information until mid-January.
That's pretty extensive. Is that new, how extensive that is?
No, that's the way it's all.
That's the way it's always been?
Yeah, I mean, we've changed some of the things, like one of the things that I am really interested in this year is staffing comparison with different
Yeah, I
different
thought that was
communities.
new, yeah,
So that's new.
yeah.
But, you know, so in general, we'll get that in. Brittany and I will take a look at it. And then we'll have a couple of workshops. Again, we'll have the select board invited to that
Yeah.
to talk about, you know, this whole budget, which is shaping up to be challenging. We do have, you know, just obviously we're in the very, very early stages of things. We haven't got, you know, the governor has not submitted her budget yet, so we don't have, you know, a House 2 budget, and it's going to be a while.
And I don't think we'll have it by the end of the month.
We won't. New governor has until February to submit her budget.
Right.
So we won't know what Chapter 70, what state aid numbers look like until then. Some of the big drivers of costs include health insurance. We won't know that really until March. You know, we're including a, you know, conservative figure when we're looking at that moving, you know, looking at the budget right now. We've got a conservative figure for that. But, you know, as of right now, we're, you know, we're looking at a deficit of probably close to $1 million. If you look at just increasing our departmental budgets by the percentages that we've outlined in our financial policies. Again, that reduced new growth revenue, you know, has an impact, and then also some of the fixed cost expenses, you know, have an impact as well.
Sure.
So,
And I take that while there are legal battles going on in court with respect to a major development that should have been being built right now, I'm sure that impacts that deficit.
well, I mean,
Well, we also then voted not to allow projects
Right.
moving, you know,
Well,
for
we have
2
a
years.
moratorium,
So that right there, we have our
so
moratorium.
that's going to have
That-
an impact
that
as
has
well.
a major impact on it as well.
Yeah.
Right, so it's not something that's not being done on purpose, it's just, we're
Well,
trying
it's
to
a
slow down
conscious
the
decision.
process, and in doing so, it's gonna affect it, no matter what.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this when we've looked at buying properties and things like that, and I've made it very, very clear that there's going to be a financial impact to this that we're going to have to face at some point, and that's, you know, it is what it is. That's a choice the community can make when they go to town meeting and vote for these
Right.
purchases or not. You know, there's a cost impact to it, but then there's also the opportunity cost from a lost development perspective. I still feel very strongly that the properties that we've purchased have been, you know, I think we've done the right thing.
Yeah.
Don't disagree.
Well,
But-
I, you know, probably beating a dead horse here, but, you know, I still feel that, you know, we need to have a better means of analyzing these situations. And, you know, we have that tool. I understand it's getting rebuilt,
It's getting updated, and the planning board's
so I
going
think
through it.
it's, okay. And, you know, I hope we see that soon, because then we can, you know, I think, we can determine what's good, bad, indifferent.
Yeah, and I think a lot of caveats need to be included in the discussion when we talk about that.
Not
physical
perfect, but it
impact.
gives us some
Right.
guidelines, it gives us some parameters. It, I think, also allows us to assess how we ask for mitigations from a project, you know? I think
Agreed.
that's a benefit right there. The
Wholeheartedly.
other thing, we talked about, last time Brittany was here, about having her come back and do her presentation
trend.
on the forecasting.
The trend analysis?
The trend analysis,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's been a few years now, so I think it'd be a good time to do it.
Yeah, this is gonna be a good year to
Yeah.
do it, because, like I said, we got some challenges.
What are we hearing, if anything, from the schools? I mean, did they get this, did they get this budget description as well? And is it just for for general government departments? And I know they're early on in their process, they typically try to have something wrapped up by January. Have we heard any indications from them in regards to what they're thinking?
So what's included in your packet goes to the municipal departments.
General, yeah, okay.
So it doesn't go to the schools. The schools have their own process. I did meet with Jim today to talk about just some general budget stuff and what some of the pressures that he's facing. You know, a primary driver is going to be the special education costs and some things that are out of our control. Namely, the state has now allowed out-of-district tuition to increase by a significant percentage. I think it's like 17%.
Wow.
That's going to have an impact. I think, you know, some of the population moving in, you know, the number of kids that we have that need out-of-district placements is driving that cost. And I think we're going to have to get creative this year.
So I'm going to request early, and I know we've talked about this and then it hasn't happened. If we're seeing the schools are going to have a significant increase, and I applaud the conversations that you and Jim have had over the years, and you've gotten us to where we need to, but I think if as a community we have to have a tougher conversation, I think it should be jointly between the school committee and ourselves and the finance committee. And we haven't had, you know, we're not doing liaison, you know, partly for COVID and other things like that. But I think if we, on the general government side, are seeing a potential deficit and the schools are going to see a potential deficit, then I think it needs to be a broader conversation than between you and Jim. I think it needs to be the committees as well, part of that conversation.
This is going to be the year that we have to do it, because I think we're actually going to have to look at maybe a modification of our policies to address this, which is going to take all three boards to sign
To
off.
approve and review.
In addition,
Okay.
Reserve policies?
Or the 60/40?
Oh, no, the
nah,
60/40.
you know, I think the free cash policy,
Yeah.
especially how we approach the special education stabilization
Right.
fund, I think is going to be a discussion that we need to have. We are going to need to talk about, you know, this is very, very early. This is a very, very preliminary
Right,
conversation.
It's very preliminary, but I feel like sometimes it gets to be February, early March, and we try to have the conversation, and then we can't fit the meetings in because there's no time in the schedule or for whatever reason. So I'm requesting now that you reach out to Jim, and maybe Brandy, you reach out to the current chair, and let's get a conversation going, same with the finance committee, about having some joint discussions about the potential budget shortfalls that we are going to have as a community.
Or even
Because-
just put a date on the calendar
Well, that's what I'm
now.
saying, is
Yeah.
let's get a date when we're gonna do it. So, I don't want it to be end of February, early March, when the budgets are close to having to be decided, and we say, oh, well, you know, we can't fit it in because everyone's too busy.
So I'm not sure the schools are going to have their budget until March. Like, their internal budget process done until March.
I think by statute, they do a budget, pretty sure, end of January, early February. They have to have something with the community. I mean, it might not be finalized, but if they're starting their discussion, let's get in with them and the beginning part of their discussion, not when they're done and they've made decisions. That would be my recommendation.
I don't disagree. We've had those discussions in the past, and having those meetings are very helpful for our budget as a whole for the town.
Right.
Completely. You know, we don't wanna wake up and say, oh, my God, the elephant's in the room, we, you know, and we can't get it out. So, I think, I agree with Yolanda, that the sooner the better.
So maybe if, like, they have a better sense by, what, end of February, do you think? Or,
Yeah, and in fact, I mean, we won't really have, I mean, our departmental budgets, you know, municipal end budgets, we're not really gonna have a draft until the end of January, early February.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I would
But-
caution about jumping on to the school committee too early in the process. I think, you know, we need to stay in somewhat our lanes here. And, you know, I understand we want to get ahead of it as soon as we can, but at the same time, they are responsible for their role. And I think, you know, we need to allow them to do, you know, their business. And, but again, you know, try to get the groups together as early in the process. I don't disagree with Yolanda. You know, we get into March, the end of March, and, you know, we're scrambling to get an understanding.
yeah. Well, why don't I reach out to Lori Tosti, the chair, and just see from a timing perspective if what things might look like by like end of February, and we can just kind
I
of
think that'd be good.
talk
think
about a
that'd be
date.
good.
I can do that.
So,
Really can't hurt, and we're not
So,
dictating to them.
just to go back a little, so, and again, different administration, different times. As a school committee, yes, they have autonomy, but they're part of the general government budget. And I can remember when I sat on school committee, we got directive from the town manager. We got directive to say, okay, in looking at our forecast, we may need to look at cuts or changes or whatever. So, yes, the school committee has that autonomy to some extent, but we're a town who has a town budget who needs to make sure that we're addressing all needs.
so
That's all.
they pass, so they could pass whatever budget they want, right? And that's their internal process.
Yep.
And, you know, essentially, they'll come to us with a number
Yep.
and say, okay, this is what we need. And then you have the bigger budget discussion.
That's
Well, we
right.
can't necessarily do that. To Yolanda's
To
point,
my
it
point,
would
we
be
haven't really
good.
pushed back in the last couple of years, or at least not publicly, or at least not with a board level discussion. Like I said, I think you and Jim have done a great job over the last couple of years because we've had some extra funding, because we haven't had to say, no, we're not gonna do that. But from what you're saying, from a general government perspective, we're looking at possible issues, then most likely from the school's perspective, we're looking at issues. I'm just saying, let's get them out there and let's start having some discussions jointly. Yes, we're not gonna interfere in what they're doing, but there has to be some joint understanding of if there's gonna be pain in the community, how are we gonna feel that pain? That's all.
Agree.
I think the townspeople deserve that.
Well, I think their process is different than our process. You know, the school committee has budget workshops, and I don't know if you did this
We did.
way back when, but they have budget workshops. We don't participate in budget workshops. We get an update, we get an update
Right.
from you, you know, every other
Yeah,
week.
well, and that's one of the things we're talking about changing this year is to actually have you participate in some of our
Okay.
budget.
Right? I mean,
So-
you know, as
And
you're
I
sitting
think
with
that's where, you know, you have your lanes. So if that's, in fact, we're gonna institute that, then, you know, to me, then it makes sense that we come together and, you know, I mean, we, you know, clearly, we're gonna know fairly early what's going on.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be important for you to understand some of the challenges that our departments
That's
are
right.
facing. And you know, specifically, we're really going to focus on this year aligning expectations of the community with the resources that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really start talking about having a conversation, which is, okay, we're not going to fund this, but we're not going to be able to do this. We've never done that. We've always said, okay, we'll make it work, and that has got us to a point where it doesn't work. So I think it'll be important for you to have that, to kind of see that pressure
Yeah.
firsthand.
And I know you go through that with the finance committee, but, you know, ultimately, it's the select board that votes to move forward with a budget.
Well, ultimately, it's the town manager's budget
Yeah,
that
it
goes
is,
to
but
town
we,
meeting.
you need our support to put it through.
Yeah, I'm not gonna put a budget forward that you don't support, so.
So why don't I reach out to Lori Tosti, and I'll report back at our next meeting,
Okay.
and we can,
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
get a date.
So that's, again, that's the budget in general. So the next item that we have is fire promotions. And we're gonna be having a ceremony to promote Lynn Moorhan to the newly created deputy chief position.
Great.
Also, Matt Boland, who's currently a lieutenant, has been chosen to fulfill Lynn's captain role that she is vacating.
Yep.
And then Kyle Marcinkowitz, who is currently a firefighter, has been chosen to fulfill Matt's lieutenant role that he's vacating.
Nice.
So we're going to have a ceremony promoting all three of them this coming Monday, the 9th, at 10 a.m. Obviously, you're all invited to be a part of that if you want to.
In the select
In
board
the
room?
select board meeting
Okay.
room. So,
Great.
so congratulations to all three. You know, they've certainly earned it. I will say, you know, Chief
come
Roby
to
went through a
breakfast
pretty, you know, extensive process
gonna do it with the
in
weather?
trying to find, you know,
About
the best
60
fit
people.
and the best candidates. And I know he had some tough decisions, so good for him.
That's great.
Let's see, I got two other things that aren't on the agenda, actually three. So late this afternoon, I got notification from DEP that the Independence Booster Pump Station is ready to go. So that's great.
And that was what was, we had done a eminent domain at town meeting, and Fish was paying for this booster pump, correct?
Yeah, so, oh gosh, you had to remind me.
Sorry, I'm just trying
Those
to,
were-
I just want to like make sure that people know
Yeah,
what we're talking
they,
about.
they ended up paying for this, which is about $600,000.
Mm.
It wasn't easy to get them to pay for it, but they did. We did end up having to go to town meeting and getting an easement, which if you remember, we got the support of the neighborhood to do that, which was a win. So yeah, now it's working.
Wow, and the neighbors, I assume, are thrilled that this is up and running?
They're happy, and actually, for the most part, just they're realizing the development itself
Didn't have as much of
is
an
is
impact.
not as impactful, and actually has some benefits to it as well in terms of walking and sidewalks and
Yeah.
stuff. So that's good. We're glad that they're happy. Water pressure should be a little better. One other thing is, there's some chatter going around about some of the services provided at Framingham Union Hospital, Metro West Medical Center. Recently, because of some staffing issues, the hospitals had to divert
Right.
certain
Hadn't heard that.
cases. Currently, it's labor and delivery. You know, obviously, it does have an impact on us, not a huge impact, but just let you know that we're monitoring that and we'll be on it, and just the general. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees there, so it's something that is very, very important to us, as well as
Yeah.
just like the general conditions there. So that's, we're monitoring that just in case if you start hearing some of your constituents come in and ask about that, feel free to reach out. And last, I just want to extend congratulations to Karen and Jack for starting their new terms, and Karen her new term as Senate President. So, and obviously it's a lot.
She had no problems with that.
Had no problems with that. Obviously, at our state legislature functions a lot better than what happens in Washington. So,
Is there any updates that you can give on trash? Because I know we've had a couple, the last week or so has been pretty rough for folks.
Last week.
Well, the latest was the last, you know.
Since the new contract was signed.
So I have sent a letter today, actually, with tens of thousands of dollars of fines to Waste Management, and notified them that we're going to be deducting that from their invoice, as is our right under the contract. I can tell you it frustrates us just as much as it does residents, because we have to spend our time, you know, getting information out to the community.
Yep.
We also have to go out. We get a list each night. If streets are missed, of what streets are missed, we in turn have to spend time the next day verifying that it's only those streets. So we're charging them for that time and energy as well. And ultimately, we will be, if this continues, we will be looking at moving to a new hauler. Now, everybody thinks that that's, oh, just go to a new trash vendor. Well, first of all, you've got to find a vendor who is willing to service Ashland. Number two, you have to make sure that that vendor is actually going to do a better job than what Waste Management is doing. I mean, Waste Management has issues, but they are industry-wide issues. So, you know, some of the companies out there actually are doing a worse job.
Yeah.
And
The labor supply is the predominant issue.
labor supply, parts for trucks.
Parts for trucks,
But
yeah.
labor supply, and
Supply
you know,
chain.
I hate to say it, but the companies themselves are going to have to
Pay more.
pay more.
Yeah.
You know,
Hey, if McDonald's can, you know, pay $15 an hour,
15, 18.
it's up to 18 now?
Yeah.
Oh, my
A
God.
number of the fast food restaurants in town, you see their signs and they're saying $18.
$18 an hour.
They have to, because there's not,
Well, minimum wage
minimum
is
is
15 now, it just turned
so that's-
15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Michael, to go back to Waste Management, just to give you an example, and you're right, it's the people who work for them. A condo owner on the south side of town was telling me that there was one hauler for Waste Management, that he would get that entire condo group done in one day. Now, the new people that are, well, the new drivers that are there, it's taken 2 trucks an entire week to get what one guy was doing in a day.
yeah, obviously there's
So-
training and.
Right, so
stuff.
it's just, you know, it's a learning curve for those new drivers and stuff, so it's tough. It's really tough.
It's
You
not
ex-
easy work.
No.
It's not. I don't blame the drivers for these situations. I don't. I blame the support at the corporate offices.
And the training or non-training that they're getting. and the-
Exactly.
Yeah.
The
They're looking at the
expectations
bottom
being
line.
set.
But isn't there, you know, some communities have a more automated system than we do. And, you know, the drivers in our system have to get in and out of the vehicle. In other systems, they operate everything from inside the vehicle and just reach out arms and pick up containers. So I would think at some point that, you know, I mean, again, we're not specialists in construction, nor are we on trash industry as well, but it would seem that that would be an obvious,
It could if we're willing to pay $3 million up front for new trucks. You know, that would do that.
Extra containers, right? Because you're
Yeah,
talking about,
well, that's
you're
right.
talking
We're
about
talking-
communities that have a trash receptacle as well as a
a
recycle.
recycle, that's correct.
Right,
That's
so
what you're
that's where
saying.
you're
Yeah,
seeing it.
yeah.
So you would lose that consumption-based.
Right.
Yeah, they don't use bags when they do that?
Nope,
That's
They
interesting.
don't,
Yeah.
but you'd reduce the plastic.
Sam would be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you get a feeling they're getting a handle on things, or?
No. We get promises each week, and it just doesn't materialize. I would like to go 1 week without having
Any issue?
any issue.
Now, do we think it was any, like the last couple weeks, holidays or not?
What happens is
Oh, no,
they,
no, we do.
you know, from a labor issue, for whatever reason, they're not able to complete the first route. And then it just trickles. So they have to come back and spend Wednesday part of the time picking up the rest,
Of the
the
Tuesday
Tuesday
route,
route,
right.
and then it just trickles down. So one of the things we've talked about, the possibility, do we move to a Monday through Thursday collection system, so you don't have to wait over the weekend? They're not interested in that. So the fines, will.
What was interesting, they went back to the old two-man pickup vehicles, because that's what did our neighborhood for the last
Yeah, I
last
noticed
day or
that
so.
as well.
And I went out to him, I said, wow, what happened? He says, yeah, newer vehicles, they're falling apart, so we had to go back, and they actually were renting these trucks.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Great times.
Yeah.
And our next meeting will most likely be discussing the trash fees situation. So I know we had gotten an email about the seniors, like
Yeah.
so.
Senior discount,
A
yeah.
senior discount, so like, I mean.
They thought we were gonna get rid of it.
We
We have
hadn't
no
seriously
intention of
discussed
getting rid of that.
Yeah.
any specifics on any
That
of
wasn't
the fees.
proposed.
No.
So, I think there was,
It
I
was
think
thrown
there
out
was.
there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I asked us just to consider, not getting rid of it, but how we do it, the age different, stuff
Yep.
like that. And of course, the next time I was at the senior center, people were like, why are you, I'm like, we're not getting rid of anything. We're just looking. As with any time you're looking at your budget and any time you're looking at an increase in expenses, you gotta look how you're paying for
Yep.
stuff. That's all.
Well,
But yeah, they panicked.
Well, full disclosure, I have been, I attend Council on Aging meetings
Right.
at the first Thursday of the month. I've been doing it for years, and
Yep.
typically, I'm there as a guest.
Yeah.
But they do expect me
Yeah.
to
Give an update.
give an update on anything that's relative to the community center or the seniors. And what I said was, and I didn't identify who said what. I said, we are talking about, the board talked about our trash fees last night because we've got this situation, we've got a deficit and so on. And in part of the conversation included comments about the senior trash rate. And of course, from there, it became, they're advocates for seniors. So
course,
they're gonna
which
do,
makes sense,
which
perfect
is
sense.
what they do. And now that I'm a member of the Council on Aging,
Full disclosure.
So full disclosure.
so that was the.
Steve wanted to make sure that the seniors
so-
are protected. So we are not going to charge the seniors a boatload of money for trash pickup. We're gonna charge everyone a
there's a
boatload
slogan,
of money
yeah.
for trash. No, kidding. Just, seriously, it's been a long day. Okay, so are you all set? Is there
Oh,
anything
I'm all
else?
set.
You're good? All right.
On that note.
On that note, moving into board reports. Joe, you want to start off?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Happy New Year to everybody and everybody out there listening on Zoom. I appreciate the fact that we're starting our new year healthy and happy, well, maybe healthy. I'm a little concerned about where our budget's gonna go, but, it's catching up to us, and I get that, and I understand that. We've been going full bore, but that's okay. I just want to say that we're having a traffic study committee meeting in 2 weeks, and we hope to have Mr. Regan up at the Warren School to come in and sit on the meeting with John Murray, with Doug Small. We're redesigning. When I say redesigning, we're not structurally redesigning the intersection up at Fruit and Elliott, but we're contemplating making it a four-way stop. And the reason why we're making it a four-way stop is that once,
Yeah, three-way stop.
no, actually, yeah, you're right, it's a three-way stop.
Three-way, it's
Yeah,
currently a two-way.
it's currently a two-way. We're looking to put another sign up on the Elliott Street side
Yeah.
by the Cedar Street area. And we're not doing that now because the Cedar Street Fire Station will be impacted by that if the fire vehicles need to come down that road. So, but once that fire station is shut down and everybody's on the new station, that's what we plan on implementing. But we're also looking to redesign the back parking area of the school.
The traffic
Where
flow
the
there.
traffic flow comes in. We're looking to set up different,
The back park, I'm sorry,
yep,
you mean the front park?
no, the
No,
back
the
part.
driveway in
The
from
driveway
Oh,
in
that old
from Elliott
driveway
Street.
down to
Right.
Elliott Street.
Yeah,
okay.
but-
Because that's where the
Baseball
buses
field.
come in and pull in, and the parents.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if we can align more vehicles that way, that should help alleviate
Mhm.
that flow of traffic and traffic jam on Elliott Street both ways.
Yes.
Because that's dangerous at this stage
it's
of the game.
bad.
So we wanted to get the school involved in this, and
Great.
Mr. Reagan will be attending.
Joe, I think
So-
that's a great, I think that's a great idea. I was gonna approach you about that, making that a three-way stop.
We've actually been discussing this for the last 4
Well,
months.
Great.
also, when we made it a two-way stop, it was said we can't make it a three-way stop
Right.
until they're out of the Cedar Street Fire Station.
Right.
So this shouldn't be
forgot
news
that,
to
but-
people that it's potentially gonna be a three-way stop.
That's
I think
correct.
that's great.
And again, hopefully,
I think
granted,
they work very well
Santa Claus
when
did
you
not
run
show
into
up with the
everything.
tracks and trolleys that we were hoping would happen, but that's okay.
So.
We got coal instead, so.
For this Warren School, potentially looking to widen that driveway a little bit? So
Yes,
that
in
they
the
can
backside.
have two cars, because right now they have to go single file into that.
That's correct. And
if
it's
they-
not that
It's not
much.
that much off.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you do have
It's about,
wetlands
it's
in the
about five,
field.
it's about 5 feet, but
Yeah.
you're still within that, within that
Okay.
area. And that's just to land with the
That road,
vehicles.
it just gets,
Oh, it's crazy.
it's
So that's
messy.
what we plan on doing, and.
I would just a note about the neighbors there on Elliott Street. Wasn't that a huge issue years ago? when
It still is.
It still
People
is. Yeah.
stopped in front of their driveways.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it still
It's-
is
it's-
in
it's
the
a
morning
big
and in
issue.
the afternoon.
Yep.
This may alleviate some
We,
of it.
we
Yeah.
hope that does.
Yeah.
And hopefully, but it's still slowing down traffic as well. And the other thing is, we're still looking at putting up, erecting signs, no parking signs, on the other side of Howe Street, off the DCR side, because we're still having parking issues with people parking closer to Cross Street. And they have to, and which is a three-way stop as well. But when cars are coming out of Cross Street onto Howe, they have to edge out a bit because they can't see, because there are vehicles that park there, and they're there
Pick a side.
4 or 5 hours at a whack.
Wow.
So you can't see that kind of, so we're
You
working
heard
on
about-
that.
You
So
heard about the blue space issues today.
I heard about the blue space
People trying
issues.
to find the water in the summer.
That's
But,
right, that's okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's probably one where we can cut the deficit, if we have somebody up there
Charge
charging
parking.
people.
There you
Yeah,
go.
charge parking.
Tickets?
And Affordable Housing Trust, we'll be working on, and hopefully, we get some other additional information with the Olive Street project that we're working at, but,
Oh, nice.
yeah, we were able to get them money to do a wetland delineation,
Great.
and that will, because it's changed.
Yeah.
It's been over 15, close to 15 years, so that, I'm sure that delineation has taken some of the land away from us. But that's what we're looking at, and nice to see everybody back, and hopefully, I'll have more to report on when we get done. So, but I am not attending the MMA conference, with other things that I have going on in my health life. I feel that this is good for me right now.
Good.
So, but you guys have
We'll
fun.
report
And-
back.
and
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I'm
can
sure you'll
report
report back with all the shrimp and everything else that you, that's there.
That's what we're going
for.
Yeah, and I feel bad for the lady that's sitting way across from me. She is, Jen,
Oh, Jen.
I have to tell you,
Don't.
it's no, I am. I am. I mean, you talk about sitting and waiting. I mean, we've been waiting with broken promises for the last 5-6 months now. That building should be up and running.
She's
Should
actually
be
got
up
the
and
tracks
running.
and trolleys behind her back there.
Yeah.
So-
Well, and I'm willing
They're
to
in your
I'm willing to go on a road trip. Yeah. Steve will come with me.
Absolutely.
We'll get that equipment. But anyway, that's all I have to report, and glad to be back with everybody and do what we need to do.
All right.
Good.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Joe.
Great, thank you, Joe.
Yolanda, you're up next.
So between our last meeting and the holidays, I attended a trails meeting in Natick. I don't think I reported on that. It was held at Broadmoor, and it was sponsored by Metro West Regional Collaborative and MAPC. There was some really good discussion about initiatives for trails. We're gonna start trying to have a monthly meeting talking about different trails. So I'm gonna reach out to our Trails Committee and see if there's someone from that who might want to be participating in that conversation on a regular basis, as well as our planning, our conservation agent was there, and her name is
Becca.
Becca and Sam were both there, and she has a lot of knowledge, Becca, so we need to.
I said that, she's a good kid.
Yeah, and she's also a specific agent for her hometown.
She's a Concom.
She's on the Concom.
Yeah, she's the chair of our conservation.
Yeah, so we got to use that. But it was just a great discussion. We talked about how CSX finally signed a deal with Framingham to extend the Bruce Friedman Trail into Framingham. And Sherborne is in the process of trying to negotiate with CSX. Unfortunately, the person who Framingham used to negotiate their contract has now left, so they have to find a new contact. So, but that's moving forward. And then just some other things coming up. This Saturday at the library is their first mini book sale. If you got your postcard in the mail from the Friends, it was a great postcard. You can bring it and get a discount. And then I believe it's hazardous waste drop-off Saturday at the DPW. And that's all I got.
Okay. Thank you. Steve,
Yeah.
you're
My
up
turn.
next.
So, you took care of the Friends of the Library book
Yes.
sale. Good,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So,
I could help.
so, there's this economic saying, cliche, there's no such thing as a free lunch. But there is such a thing as a free breakfast. And that's going on tomorrow at the community center at 9 o'clock. The Ashland Lions Club puts on the first Thursday of the month a free breakfast for seniors. And so that's tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Bonnie and I were invited to attend the swearing-in this morning at the State House, and it was very good. But I do, and I certainly congratulate Rep. Lewis for his getting sworn in again as our rep, and congratulate Karen certainly for getting reappointed as Senate President. This is her third term. But I really want to acknowledge Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito. This was their final day. Governor Baker did the long walk out of the State House this afternoon. And, I just think both of them were really good stewards of the Commonwealth during their 8 years. So I think he's moving into a really tough gig, which is the head of the NCAA, which makes, I think, the MBTA look like a well-run machine. So good luck to Governor Baker, and then if you'll indulge me for a few minutes, I was going to go off the cuff and just kind of wing it, but I thought more and more about it, and I said, well, I better write this down so I make sure that I get all my thoughts in a cohesive, articulate way. So it would.
Rob just looked at the page.
I've got 4 pages here.
Okay, motion to go past 10 o'clock.
No, I'm only teasing. I don't have 4 pages.
I'm seeing at least one.
No, it's not.
Quarter of.
We're good.
So
We're good.
I
Go
just,
ahead, Steve.
so, I just wanted to just reflect on a couple things. And, my first opportunity in local government was a charter review committee. And, at that point, I had absolutely no plans or intentions of doing anything beyond that. But I was convinced to take on a role with the finance committee. And at that point, I had absolutely no plans to do anything else other than that. And then an opportunity came to become a select board member. And I was fortunate enough to get elected. And so after 12 years and at the age of 73, I think it's time for my next role or transition, whatever you want to call it. So, I know my colleagues here are aware of my intention to not run for re-election in May, but I wish to make those intentions public tonight. I've been fortunate in many ways, with family, with friends, with colleagues in public life, and with the community at large. And, I've often spoke about having one foot in local government and one foot in grassroots activities and so on. And I think we all share that. We all do lots of different things within the community, and we've all been active in things way beyond just coming to a meeting twice a month. We're fortunate to live in a community where so many other Ashland residents embrace volunteerism and community engagement to improve our quality of life. And we have, we had the Scouts here not too long ago. I mean, the number of organizations and groups that are out there trying to make Ashland a better place is impressive. So the past 12 years for me, have been interesting, challenging, stimulating, educational, satisfying, frustrating, and sometimes discouraging. It's difficult to articulate, I think, in a board report, all of those aspects, and I think we all share those feelings. So there's still a number of meetings until the next election, so I'm just putting you on warning that you're going to have to suffer through my attempts at reflecting on my select board tenure. So, but I do not intend to become a spectator, and I appreciate the appointment to the Council on Aging. My first COA meeting is tomorrow, and I look forward to advocating for Ashland seniors. I think I already started that.
Yeah, just a little.
Reviewing current demographic data, Ashland's senior population is increasing as a percentage of our total population. As we embark on creating a strategic and comprehensive plan, it's critical that the plan reflects these demographic changes, particularly relative to economic security, social isolation, housing, aging in place, elder services, staffing, and facility needs. So instead of sitting on this side of the table, I'll be standing on that side, on the other side, and hopefully continue to make a contribution. So, my tune.
Great. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Right.
It's well said,
Yeah.
and I know I'm the youngest in tenure here on the board, but it's been so great working with you. And I think we all work really well together, so,
Yeah.
we will miss you.
Well, I think we'll have plenty of time to
Yeah.
reflect
Yeah.
and to, I think,
not
right
leaving
out
yet.
No.
of the gate, you decreased the average age here of this board, so I applaud you for that.
By a bit, yes.
That's why I ran.
Yeah, that's funny.
Thank you.
But thank you, Steve. All right. Do you have anything else?
Is that-
Another
you
page?
can't- You can't follow that up, not
No. Well, Steve, thank you for sharing that with you. This isn't our farewell speech anyway, so I had to wait
No.
for that, but that's great. That is a tough act to follow, but thanks for sharing all that with us, But, no, I just had just a quick note, we took a New Year's Day walk on the Constituent Rail Trails, first time I've been out there. It actually we started at Saxonville, which is a converted fire station, actually. I thought it was still an active fire station the way they'd done it, so they have some interesting things there. So, but just the appeal of things like rail trails, there were so many people out, and it's an interesting mixture of both natural and built environment. It's like you go by the Home Depot. It's right there. You go to the parking lot, you go out the back of the parking lot of Home Depot, the rail trail's there. You go over Route 9 on this huge bridge that must have cost, talk about, ours is cheap by comparison.
That was the tip, wasn't it?
Right, but they had to rebuild the entire, oh my God, it was just enormous. And, so you had in Constituent State Park and the beach, which is great. So anyway, that's just again, let's keep moving on our rail trail. It's a great public resource, and we have to do something once Steve leaves us, so we gotta keep going. So anyway, that's all I got to say, so.
Thanks, Rob. So I just have a couple quick things. We kind of talked about it a little bit, but Yolanda and I were part of the kickoff meeting for the project management team, which will then become part of the steering committee for the comprehensive plan. It was Yolanda, myself, Michael, Peter Machek, Anna Tesnaminsky, Kate Jersik, and Chuck Lids. So,
And a resident.
yes. So,
Well, Chuck was there as an observer? He
Yep.
wanted to see what you were
Yeah,
up to?
and he,
Yeah.
and a
That's
participant, and
interesting.
he was a participant,
United
so.
Nations peacekeeping.
Yeah, that's
So it was a good, it was,
That's interesting.
it was a good, yeah, no, it was a good meeting. We had it was right before the holidays, and I think it was good to kind of set the tone for what we wanted to accomplish, which I think we did. And we're gonna start working on the sort of the priorities, or the consultant, obviously, and then also the steering committee. So I think after our next meeting, which is on the 19th, I believe, of January, we're, because of meeting schedules and stuff, we're meeting right now once a month. But I think the hope is that these meetings will become very productive, so that we will all be doing things in preparation for these meetings, so that we kind of keep things moving forward.
When's
So,
the, when are you thinking of recruiting for the
for the steering committee?
steering committee? Like, how is that process gonna?
So I think, and we haven't like specified like a time frame or details and stuff yet, but I think the idea is we're gonna draft an email which we'll review, and we'll be sending that out to, because we had in our document that we had kind of approved the proposal. There was a list of committees and boards that we wanted to make sure were included in this process. And I think that the thought was that we were gonna have about, I wanna say 20, 22, 20, something like that, people total, including like people from the different precincts. So it's gonna be kind of two things. One, it's gonna be reaching out to all those committees and asking them to,
Name somebody.
to name
yeah.
someone for appointment onto the steering committee, and then also do a public ask to see for members of the public at large that want to join as well. And so my guess is that we will probably have something ready to go out the end of January, so that committees have some time to discuss and appoint, and then we'll assess all of that and bring that back to basically a joint meeting of the planning board and select board at that point. So, Yolanda, do you have?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think, I know we didn't put it on this agenda, but I think at our next agenda, we should start looking at when we're having that joint meeting between the select board and the planning board. I'm expecting sometime end of February in regards to, because the two groups together have to approve the steering committee members. Yes, they're being proposed by the different committees, but there'll be the members from the precincts that we'll have to approve and review. And then there's also some other items related to, the RFP and that whole process. So I think even though the project management team is going to be doing a lot of work, there's going to have to be multiple early on joint meetings between the select board and the planning board. And then as we get into the process, that'll get put aside as the steering committee does its work.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because of how we decided to do the process.
So more to come on that soon. And the other thing was the group that was working on inclusionary zoning, so that we had worked on the housing production plan, and then the inclusionary zoning was sort of the second part of that. We had initially thought we were going to bring that to Springtown meeting. As a group, we had decided that we're going to basically incorporate, like, it's a bigger discussion, and it needs to be part of the comprehensive plan process. We're embarking on this comprehensive plan. We also have a 2-year building moratorium. So, we talked about the importance of keeping this moving forward, because it's an important thing to keep on our radars. And I think housing will probably be one of the first things that we tackle as a comprehensive, like when we prioritize the things that we're going to look at, housing will be one of the first ones we do, because we have this building moratorium and we want to start collecting that data. So the inclusionary zoning is probably going to be a part of that, but it didn't make any sense to kind of work on that separately and try to bring that to town meeting.
That makes perfect sense.
So I just wanted to kind of just let you all know that was sort of what we had decided, and it's not off the radar. It's just.
Hopefully it gets resolved and you get that implemented once the moratorium is decided.
Yeah.
That way we have that intent, so if a builder comes in, these are the requirements, and if they can't follow those requirements, then find someplace else to build.
Yeah, So we'll more to come on that, but I just wanted to let you guys know that that's tabled for the moment.
So, question, and if you don't know the answer, Michael, you can tell us at our next meeting. With the projects that have just been permitted by the planning board, will we be in safe haven? And if you're not sure, then that's okay, but 100 Chestnut Street and 501 Pond.
So we will not with 100 Chestnut Street because
Okay.
the decision was made to go
With 10%.
with 10%. However, on 501 Pond, which was approved with 25% affordable, we'll be able to add all 120 units
Right.
onto the housing inventory. So we would be in safe harbor.
Okay.
When does that become effective, do you know?
So Peter's in the process of putting together the information to DHCD, but
Okay.
it goes back and is effective as of the date that it was filed with the town, the decision was filed with the town
Okay.
clerk.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll be okay. Great, thank you.
And so it should be for a period of 2 years.
Right.
Um,
And then the building moratorium, and with it, then we're, okay,
Exactly.
Okay.
thank you.
Another quick question about building. I noticed on the
What happened to your board report?
plan, I know, I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's all I
On-
had.
On
so.
the planning board agenda, I think either, maybe it's tomorrow night's agenda, there is a Homer Street project, and that falls within or outside of the moratorium?
So the application for that project, which I believe is 27 units or 29?
They've been working on that one for a while, right?
So I haven't seen that on their
Yeah.
agenda in quite some time.
And a significant amount of commercial space.
Yeah.
So that was filed before the building moratorium went into effect.
Okay.
So they're going through the hearing process. So while it wouldn't be subjected to the building moratorium, it is subjected to the sewer moratorium.
Okay. And that expires?
Well, it was initially set for a term of 6 months, so I believe it was March.
March, and you can extend that if you...
That can be extended if
Right.
necessary.
Okay.
Was that the project for Alden Street?
No, it's a different project, same developer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, across from the old train station,
Yeah.
that block there.
Oh,
Oh.
but it's already built there. This is, okay.
Yeah.
No, I know that strip, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
So,
Good.
So close
Thank
to
you.
downtown. It's kind of a,
It's right in downtown.
right in
Yep.
downtown.
yeah,
Right behind the dentist office.
Interesting.
okay.
Boy, so much.
So that's where Ed and Ellen used to park all those buses,
Yeah. In the back there.
in the back.
Oh, wow.
All right.
We didn't talk about the retreat date. Not that I'm saying we have to, but
No, we need to get some more information if we're going to have an effective discussion at the retreat,
okay.
so.
So we'll
So
schedule
not-
that.
The 11th is not something it was, we were
The
talking
11th?
about.
We were talking about, but
We had one
unfortunately,
time, but
we
it's
have
off.
not received some information that we've
Okay,
been
no,
waiting
no,
on.
That's fine, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah, we
So-
originally talked about the
So,
11th.
so you'll
but
reach
we-
out,
somebody
you'll
wasn't
look at
busy.
dates once, okay,
Karen,
All right,
yeah.
so we're-
sounds good.
Okay,
All right, does anyone else have any,
it's 9:59.
I know, we have like 1 minute to spare here. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Race.
So moved.
Is that a second?
That's a second, I'm sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's, we are adjourned at 9:59 tonight.
Ooh.
Wow.
And we got it in under the wire, guys.
Well done.
So thank you, everyone, for hanging in there, and have a great night. We'll see you in 2
Happy
weeks.
New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.